right, let's get a drive time. Tuesday afternoon, 12 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Spring continues to do spring things this week. It is a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. We're looking at about 67 degrees and sunny. Absolutely clear skies here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah, right outside of our Broadway Media Studios. Hopefully you're outside doing a little golf, a little hiking, walking the dog, riding the bike. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That's Porter Larson behind the glass. We've got 4 hours of Sports Talk Radio to do on this Tuesday afternoon, and we appreciate you making us a part of your day. University of Utah basketball program, not official yet, but potentially a new general manager on the way. We'll get to know this candidate. Again, it is not official yet. We'll wait to hear from the University of Utah for an official announcement, but we will talk about what this indicates, at least in my estimation. Wes Wilcox has been in pro basketball since 2003. He's been a general manager in the league for the Atlanta Hawks. He's been an assistant GM on a couple of different stops and the director of player personnel for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And he is the man who hired Alex Jensen to be the head coach of the Canton Charge, a job that Alex did on an elite level, winning G League Coach of the Year and winning a G League championship. So exciting times as the University of Utah. You know, we talked about this during football season as a lot of conversation about where the Crimson Collective is, where the NIL situation exists, and what the financial infrastructure is right now at the University of Utah to kind of fund the athletic department in a way that you have to now that's a little bit different in the past. So we'll get to this story on the program today. BYU one day closer to their Sweet 16 matchup against Alabama. We'll let you get to know Alabama a little bit more today. We'll talk about that matchup. The more and more you dig into this, the more and more you realize these are two really similar basketball teams. So we'll talk about the matchup. Can BYU get to the Elite Eight? And BYU holds the record for NCAA tournament appearances without a Final Four appearance. Now, the problem is that if they beat Alabama, they're likely going to play Duke, and I think Duke is the best team in college basketball. But we'll do some NCAA March Madness. Still a couple of days away from the round of 16. Brigham Young will take on Bama at 5:09 Mountain Time on Thursday. That game is on CBS. And then we've got Maryland. Man, Thursday is going to rule. We got Maryland, Florida. We have Arizona, Duke, Arkansas, Texas Tech. BYU will be playing in New Jersey. So we'll see what the fan base looks like. Newark, New Jersey is the site of the Sweet 16 matchup for Brigham Young. Big night in the NBA. The Jazz, well, you know, Jazz welcome in Ja Morant here to the Delta Center in Salt Lake City. So the Jazz, about 12 games left. And when you look at the schedule, there's a chance they don't win any of them, which is probably preferable for the plan that they have in place. But Jimmy Butler is back in South Beach. It was funny, ESPN, their NBA Today show, they were doing all the Jimmy Butler return games because he has so many different stops. As good of a player he is, man, he seems to grate on people. So there's some big games in the NBA tonight, but the Jazz not playing one of them because the Jazz haven't played a big game in a number of years. But Ja Morant's worth the price of admission. If you're looking for something to do tonight on this beautiful Tuesday, head on downtown to the Delta Center. We'll get the latest with the NFL draft prep. Both Utah and BYU had a number of players at the Big 12 Pro Day in Frisco last week. And we are about a month away, virtually a month away from the NFL draft. And a lot of conversation about what could happen at the top. Quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. So we'll get to some of that stuff. Former Utah offensive coordinator Troy Taylor lost his job today as the head coach at the University of Stanford. Andrew Luck brought on to run the Stanford program about 2-3 months ago or so. And the coaching carousel in college basketball continues, as it does this time of year. Every time the tournament is kind of taking place and some of the smaller schools are out with good head coaching candidates, they get good jobs. So we'll get to some of that on the program as well. Real Salt Lake will be back in action coming up this weekend, taking on Minnesota, trying to get back to their winning ways. No news as of now for this mythical number 9, these players that RSL claims to be interested in. We've had Jason Christ, Kurt Schmidt, Pablo Mastroeni, other guests as well to talk about the potential of RSL signing talent. It just has not come to fruition just yet. So a lot to do on the program today. We're a little basketball-centric, but it's March, so you wouldn't be all that surprised to hear that guest list. We'll start out today, Tony Jones. covers the Jazz sometimes. Usually he covers the Jazz when they're interesting. Right now he's more or less on the Denver beat, but does a lot of college scouting, does a lot of draft stuff. So we'll talk to Tony about Sweet 16, BYU Bama. We'll do a little Utah coaching staff search. Tony's familiar with a lot of the candidates that will potentially fill out Alex Jensen's staff, and he knows Coach Cho, who's already been hired. So we'll get with Tony on that. And then a couple of my favorite NBA guests today with Tom Haberstroh. And then Tim McMahon, Ben McMahon stops by. Dave Fox in the 4 o'clock hour as well. I was on TV with Dave last night. We call it 5 Questions with Spence, and we do it every couple of weeks. So appreciate Dave having me in. So busy show. Tony Jones, Tom Haberstroh, Tim McMahon, Dave Fox, me, Spence Checketts. All of you, the great listeners, happy Tuesday. Happy spring to you. And that guy, Porter Larson, on a Tuesday afternoon. Sun's out, guns out for you. You're still a young man, fit. Beautiful day, man.
It
Beautiful.
is. Spring has sprung, Spencer. I think officially. While we'll probably have snow next week.
Yeah, but first of all, don't do that. Let's start there. Number one, don't do that. Second of all, we might have snow. We could have a massive snowstorm in May. It happens.
It happens.
But we've made it past most of the junk. Like I don't think I'm going to have to preserve my shoulder and my lower back shoveling snow anymore this year. At least that's where my head is at.
You may get a storm that drops snow on the ground, but it'll melt in the next day or so. Yeah. Don't worry yourself with shoveling for the rest of the year. Enjoy the flowers that are blooming, all the trees that are starting to bud. It's beautiful out, and I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. I know. I always am on the snow thing, but we're enjoying the sunny weather out there.
Yeah, no, and it's a good reminder. We need snow, we need rain. We live in the desert. It's good for the ecosystem. I get it, but I need to play golf, man.
104% snowpack.
Okay, so we're good then.
Well,
oh my gosh.
Down south.
Calm down,
in
Mark
the center.
Eubanks.
It's still kept playing catch up a little bit. But
all right.
We're getting there.
All right, that's enough, Mayor Pete. Goodness. All right, Tony Jones will be our first guest right out of the gates on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. But before we get to TJ, courtesy of our good friends at Prize Picks, it is time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
Springtime is here and baseball season is officially underway. Opening day, I think, is Thursday with a doubleheader on ESPN. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the Diamond in your Prize Picks lineup, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first-inning runs. Take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite baseball players with players from basketball, hockey, esports, and much, much more. Our good friends at Prize Picks are offering you free money as a result of them being a client on the show. So all you need to do is go download the Prize Picks app. It's for free, Google Play Store, App Store, depending on your device. And then upon checkout, use that promo code ESPN700, and you get $50 when you play your first $5 bet. Do not even need to win that $5 bet. You get the 50 no matter what. So download that Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700, and you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game all season long. All right, some pretty exciting news broke about an hour and 20 minutes ago. It is not official yet. Let's be clear about this. But Pete Thamel, who does a great job covering college sports for ESPN, has reported that University of Utah is targeting the assistant general manager from the Sacramento Kings for the Utah general manager job. And this general manager, potential candidate, his name is Wes Wilcox. So a couple things here to indicate why I think this is really exciting. First of all, this would mark the highest-ranking sitting NBA front office member to take a college front office job. And this is not just any random NBA assistant general manager. Wes Wilcox has been in high levels of NBA management since 2003. He's been in pro basketball for 21 years. He's very well known around the league. He's very well respected around the league. He was the general manager of the Hawks from 2015 to 2017. And prior to taking over as the GM, he was the assistant general manager in Atlanta from 2012 to 2015. Prior to that stop, he was the director of player personnel for the Cavs and worked as the general manager for their G League team called the Canton Charge. Why do you need to know that? Well, the Canton Charge was the team that Alex Jensen coached in the G League, and Wes Wilcox hired Alex for that job. And as Pete Thamel points out, Wes Wilcox has worked in virtually every job in an NBA front office. And ultimately, this is a sign, in my opinion, that the University of Utah is making a very serious play to modernize their approach on the basketball side of things. And finally, somebody up there just said, okay, enough is enough. This will not do. The standard for Utah basketball should be the same standard that we have for Utah football. Now, we certainly have been spoiled as Utah football fans, and that's because of Coach Witt and the coaches that came before him, Urban Meyer, and obviously the legend Ron McBride. But, you know, ever since the years during the 2000s, early 2000s, with the Fiesta Bowl, then the Sugar Bowl, then the entrance into the Pac-12, and competing at a pretty high level pretty quickly, then ultimately winning the thing a couple of times, going to Rose Bowls, we are accustomed to our football team being at least top 25, if not higher than that, and competing for conference championships and winning games, not just at home, but wherever they go. And it seems to me that lost in the shuffle of us becoming a big-time college football market and the University of Utah becoming a big-time college football school, we've just lost the standard that we once had for our basketball program. And you do not have to pick one or the other. Brigham Young is in the Sweet 16 coming up on Thursday. They're playing Alabama, okay? And if you look at the Sweet 16, the teams that are left, there are a lot of great quote-unquote football schools, some of whom have a chance to win the whole thing. Florida, Tennessee, I could keep going. So this is an indicator, a continued indicator that somebody up there finally said, all right, enough is enough. We are sick of being a dormant basketball school. We are sick of the Huntsman Center having to hang banners in the, you know, the upper seat, the upper decks, because people aren't showing up to games. We're sick of having a lot of opposing fans in our seats and not enough home fans in our seats. Enough is enough, because you are leaving a lot on the table if you allow your basketball program to go dormant. And next year will mark a decade since Utah basketball even made the NCAA tournament. 10 years. That is still wild to me. That will never not be wild. That will never not blow my mind. Of course, I come from the prism of being a student there in the 90s when we made it every year and more often than not made a run and almost won a national championship. You know, that, and the standard should be competing for and advancing to the NCAA tournament every year. And then once you're there, being able to advance. Because if you don't do that in college basketball, you're leaving a tremendous amount of revenue, on the table. And college basketball is still a tremendously, valuable asset, and it is a revenue generator because of one reason, and that is what's going on right now. It's March Madness. And if you're a P4 school, and if you profess to be a big-time athletic department, you need your basketball team to qualify for the tournament more often than not. And then once you're there, the expectation should be you compete and you advance. And it's a one-off tournament. You never know who's going to win it. But, you know, any given day, any team can beat another team. And that's what makes this tournament awesome. But you can't. Here's a little analysis for you. You can't advance if you don't make the tournament. There you go. Write that down. And it's just been too long, not just since Utah made it, but it's been too long since this program has consistently made it and then advanced and has won games. I mean, if we're honest, it really has been since Rick left, okay, which is over 20 years ago now, 25 years or whatever. And I don't know. First of all, let me go back to the beginning here. This is not official. This is a Pete Thamel report that Wes Wilcox is in line to become the school's men's basketball general manager. That's a Pete Thamel report. It's not official. But I know what general managers make in pro basketball. And even though right now Wes is not a general manager, he's the assistant general manager of the Sacramento Kings. And for him he's still a pretty young guy. I'm not sure exactly how old he is. I think he's in his early mid-40s. For Wes to leave pro basketball, to become the general manager of Utah basketball, if this happens, my guess is we're approaching a 7-figure salary for him. I don't know that for sure. That's my guess because I know what NBA general managers make. And it's kind of the same as far as the dynamic goes that we talked about with Alex. You know, I thought Alex at some point would become an NBA head coach. NBA head coaches right now, the top end guys, $9, $10, $11 million a year, but that's Popovich, that's Spoelstra. And then the bottom end guys, I think Will makes $5 or $6 mil, maybe even a little bit more than that. So if you're Alex Jensen and that's still a goal that you have and you think you can get that, if Mark Harlan calls you, you're negotiating to get as close as you can to what an NBA coach would get. And you're not going to get that. And I don't know what they're paying Alex. I'm sure at some point we'll find out. But it's kind of the same thing with Wes if he takes this job. Wes is a guy that probably could grab another NBA general manager job. And then if you're not going to pay the salary of what the NBA would pay a GM, you got to get close to it. And that's an indicator that people up there are now serious about figuring this thing out on the basketball side because it's simply been too long. So let me be clear. It is not official. We'll wait to hear from the U. But according to Pete Thamel, University of Utah targeting veteran NBA front office executive Wes Wilcox to be the school's men's basketball general manager, sources according to ESPN. Tony Jones joins us coming up next. We'll dig into this, then we'll talk a little NBA and some Sweet 16 on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Utah Jazz welcoming the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. John Morant is in town. The Jazz are unserious about winning, but Jazz really fun. So if you're looking for something to do tonight, 7 o'clock tip time at the Delta Center. Our next guest covers the Jazz when they're trying to win. Right now, doing a lot of Denver Nuggets stuff, but he covers the NBA, college basketball, the draft. You know him, you love him. On a Tuesday, it is the great Tony Jones. TJ, happy Tuesday, man. How we doing?
My guy, what's going on?
This warm weather's hitting, so I'm enjoying my Tuesday, and we got a lot to do with you. Today. So let's just start with it's not official yet, and then we'll kind of track back and do a bunch of stuff with the Utes and the Cougars. We'll get a little NBA, a little Jazz too. But Pete Thamel's reporting that the Utes are targeting Wes Wilcox to be the school's the school's first general manager, the basketball general manager. I know you know who Wes is. He's been in pro basketball since 2003. He's been a general manager. He was the GM of the Hawks. He's currently with the Kings. He hired Alex to be the head coach of the Canton Charge. So let's be clear, not official, but should this kind of get across the line, Tony? What are your thoughts?
Can we talk about? We'll get to Wes Wilcox. Can we talk about Rafael Chilius?
That was going to be my second question, but if you would rather flip it and do Coach Chill first,
that.
okay, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Let's flip that. First of all, you're not going to believe this, but I played with him in high school.
Well, my
freshman year of high school, I played 1 year at West Nottingham Academy in Calora, Maryland, and I was the starting point guard on that team. And his name, Coach Chills, his name was Ralph Carter back then. He's changed his name for family purposes. But Ralph was taking a postgraduate year after a great high school career in D.C., and he was my teammate.
So you know him personally?
Yes.
Okay.
He was my teammate. We played together for a year. I love the dude like my own brother. He is a special dude. He was also the first teammate that I ever had to punch me in the face. Like,
wait, hold on. Before you continue, when you say the first, how many actually did?
I had about 4 or 5 that tried, but he was the first one that was successful.
Okay.
And I don't mean to hijack, but this is, he was like, this is how special a person was. He was like, I was mouthing off as a freshman. Yeah, Tony Jones mouthing off. Can you believe it? And he was a senior postgraduate, and he deservedly punched me in the face. And then I ran into the locker room. I was crying. I wanted to go home, and he was the first person. You'll even remember the coach. The coach of that team was Jeff Atkins, who used to play at Maryland.
Sure. Sure, yeah.
And Coach Atkins ran into the locker room, and Ralph was the first person to run into the locker room and give me a hug and tell me he loved me. That's how special a person he is. And that's a home run hire because he's a generational recruiter. And I'm not just saying that because I know him, but he had those great teams at South Kent in Connecticut. He was on UConn staff for a long time. He was the guy who got Markelle Fultz to go from Washington, D.C. to Washington State for college. He got Isaiah Thomas to Washington all those years under Larissa Romar. So that's really a great hire. So, I just wanted to give a shout-out to Coach Chills. I love you, and I'm glad to professionally be able to talk about how good a person and how good you are at your job.
One of the most random things about Connecticut hoops is how strong the boarding schools are. Because I spent a summer at St. Thomas More, and you remember Ed Cota, played point guard at Carolina.
I grew up with Ed Cota.
Ed Cota was at St. Thomas More the summer I was up there. And so I think a lot of people read like, okay, prep school, boarding school in Connecticut, it's wild how good the basketball is. But let me ask you this, since you know him, have you been able to connect with him? Have you talked to him about this new opportunity?
Yeah, we didn't talk about the opportunity. We didn't talk professional, but I mean, the day that it was announced that, he was the hire, I texted him, and we got on the phone together, and we just talked, and we committed. We said we are going to have dinner with each other when everything settles down. Just kind of told each other like, "Hey, man, I love you. Congratulations." But it was just really funny because like he became such a great person. And everybody knows him as Raphael Chilius and everything. And I just remember him as Ralph Carter, who was, the left-handed, shooting guard who, went out and scored 35 points a game in my freshman year of high school. So it was a good memory that was brought up, and I'm glad that we remain friends over the years.
Good stuff. So, yeah, I was going to ask you about Coach Chill second, but now that we've covered that, let's get into Wes Wilcox. And the interesting thing about this, Tony, is, and look, I don't know what they're paying Alex. I don't know what they're paying Coach Chill. I don't know. And look, the Wes thing isn't official yet, but Wes has been an NBA general manager, and he's still a young. I think he's probably in his early 40s, is my guess. I don't know 100%, but thereabouts, early to mid 40s. As the assistant GM of the Kings, there's a good shot at some point he would get another chance to run a team. And so it's kind of like Alex. Like, if you want Alex Jensen to be your head coach in college, you're going to have to pay him not what the NBA would dollar for dollar, but you're going to have to get somewhat close to it for him to say no to that opportunity for now and coach in college. And I kind of feel the same way about Wes. If you're going to say, look, leave the NBA and come run our program, my guess is Wes would say, well, here's what NBA general managers make, so we got to get close to it. I wouldn't be surprised, Tony, if this is a 7-figure contract. I'm not kidding. To me, that indicates serious intent from the Utah Athletic Department to run their basketball program the right way, intent that I haven't seen in a number of years. So give me your take on the potential of Wes Wilcox landing in Salt Lake to be the GM of the Utes basketball program.
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious that it's a really strong move. We're going to see how it pans out. Wes is, has always been a really smart basketball mind. He's been around. He's been at basketball at almost every level, at the executive level. And, he's a really smart dude. He's a really good dude. I've met him a couple times. Haven't really talked to him or gotten to, know him extensively because I haven't really I haven't worked with the Kings. But, here's the thing. The NIL for Utah is not as strong as what BYU's is. BYU's is astronomical, and it's, nobody in the country outside of Duke or Notre Dame is going to be able to match what BYU's doing right now. But Utah's NIL is strong. It's a strong number. And, I think with the NIL, they can really go, people say, hey, you can go and attract real players, real dudes to be on your roster, but you can also attract, real administration. So you can get a real coach like Alex, and Alex can get a real coach like Coach Chills, and, you can get a real GM like, Wes Wilcox. So, it's the thing that we talked about, when Alex was hired was what's the infrastructure going to be? What's the booster support going to be? What's the NIL going to be? What's, the financial commitment overall going to be? And, I think that everything that we have seen, since Alex is hired, signals that there is a strong commitment and there's going to be a strong support back in Utah hoops. And we'll see if, that gets the fan base fired up because I think the most important thing is to get people back into the Huntsman Center again.
Yeah, for sure. And ultimately, for that to happen, you've got to have a little hope in the program, and you've got to win. We know the deal. And, I think Alex, during his introductory press conference, handled that well. Let me ask you, what do you think that building will feel like right out of the gates next year? Because, again, I do think if Alex and this new staff and the transfer portal officially opened yesterday, if they just can show that the progress is moving in the right direction, I feel a excitement from the basketball community in Salt Lake in a way that I haven't felt it in quite some time. But before they actually see proof, do you think fans will show up right out of the gates next year?
And that's where Alex comes in, and that's where the Alex Jensen name comes in, right? Because people are going to show up to see Alex Jensen because this is the tie to Rick Majerus, and this is the tie to the most successful era in the history of University of Utah basketball. And we'll see if Andre Miller is on the staff. But if Andre is on the staff, we're looking at Andre and we're looking at Alex, and I think that's going to energize the fan base to the point where it's not going to fill the Huntsman. Let's be clear, but it's going to get enough people into the Huntsman to where if there's some success on the floor, then we can see the Huntsman go back to where it was 10 years ago. Because what are we, 9 years out from the Sweet 16 appearance? Is it 9 years or is it 8 years?
It's 10 years next year since they even made the tournament, TJ, which is wild.
No, that is wild. But so Jakob's sophomore year, where Utah went to, it was DeLon's senior year, where Utah went to the Sweet 16, pushed Duke to the final minutes of the game. That's where you want to be, right? Like, that's the team that you want. The Huntsman was rocking that year, and that's what you want. That team was one of the best teams in the Pac-12. They were one of the best teams in the country, and that's what you want to get. That's what you want to get back to. So, I think that the Alex Jensen era is off to a really good start, and we'll see if they can keep the momentum.
Since you brought up Andre, I'll just ask: have you heard anything? Initially I heard that they were talking, and it's been now 9 days since Alex was introduced. No, excuse me, 8 days because it was a week ago yesterday. But Andre's got a good gig as the G League head coach. So who knows? But have you heard anything about those conversations? Whether or not you feel like that's going to go down?
I've heard that there have been conversations, absolutely. And, at this point, I think it's, a wait to see, if they can come to an agreement to what compensation will be and to what a role will be. But there have definitely been conversations.
All right, moving over now to BYU, and we'll get to, they're still playing. And Utah technically is too. College basketball crown, all due respect. Hopefully they enjoy themselves. But we'll get to the game in a moment. You tweeted out, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago, something like that you had heard a ballpark figure of BYU's NIL for this coming off season. Now, ultimately, we already know that they're paying AJ DeBanza $7 million for 5 months of basketball, so we know that it's healthy. But can you shed some light on your information, what BYU has to spend on talent for hoops coming up?
I'm not going to say, what the figure I heard was, but it's a lot. Let's put it that way. And, it's a lot even beyond, what AJ is getting, in which the $7 million is more or less to what I've heard from multiple sources. The bottom line is, BYU's rolling right now, and their NIL is astronomical. I think it's got to be one of the top 3 or 4 in the country at this point, and I think that going forward into this off season, they're going to have real money to go out into the portal and spend. I think the one thing, what happens with Richie Saunders, what happens with Dallin Hall, I think that those are going to be probably fair questions to ask heading into the off season. But I expect with the financial commitment behind BYU basketball, I think that that program is going to be just fine going forward.
Yeah, it's wild to consider, and we'll get to the here and now in a moment. Certainly, they deserve a lot of credit for what they've done so far, and I think they've got a shot against Bama. We'll get there in a moment. Now, if they beat Bama, they're going to get Duke, and that's a different story. But when you look, and maybe some of these players have eligibility as grad transfers, but the seniors, the Traore kid, Trey's a senior, Trey Stewart's a senior, Trevin Knell is older than Luka Doncic, so I think he's out of eligibility. Moat Mag is a senior as well. But other than that, everyone can come back. Now, I do think Yegor has played his way back into the top 10. I know his stock was hurting earlier this year, but he's had some great tournament games. I'd be a little bit surprised if Yegor comes back, because I'm sure there's a team, even though he's young, that would take him in the top 10 to develop him over the next few years, because if he settles in and that jumper is consistent, he's going to be a great pro. But it is pretty interesting to consider how stacked they could be if the bulk of this roster comes back, and they got the Bansa kid, and they're in on a couple of other top 25 players. Like, they're good this year. They could be next level next year, Tone.
Well, I mean, you're looking at it like this. We talked about Richie Saunders. Imagine him coming back as AJ DeBance's number 2.
Right.
I mean, you're basically right there starting off with probably two of the best wing players in the country at this point, because I think Richie Saunders has a chance to be a pro. I think he has a chance to play in the NBA. And, and then obviously you have Keba Keita up front. I mean, there's just so much. And then you can, like you said, you can go out with that, and you can go take that NIL number, and you can go out into the portal, and you can go ahead and recruit dudes. I do think that Yegor is out. I don't think that I would be shocked if he comes back. I think that he's going into the draft. I think that I think on some levels he has really improved his stock this weekend. I think he's played really well. I thought some of the toughness that he showed against Wisconsin, was really good. Obviously, the jumper started to go, but he's starting to run a smoother offense than he was in the Big 12. He's getting guys into their spots. He's running a pick and roll better. And the offense is really, you see what the offense is doing. I mean, it's really thrived under his leadership. So, I think that there's going to be an NBA team in the top 15, top 20 that's going to say, hey, that's a jumbo size ball handler. He's a 6'9" point guard. Let's get him into our system and let's develop him. And I think that if you look at Josh Giddey and you look at his development and you look at what he's doing right now for the Chicago Bulls, you can close your eyes and you can imagine Yegor kind of being that kind of guy in 3 or 4 years.
The question I have about Richie coming back is he's 23. And I agree with you. A year ago, I would not have said that Richie Saunders gets an NBA look. I've changed my tune. He's all of 6'5". He elevates. He shoots a true jump shot. He elevates nicely on the jumper. It's a quick release, and he guards pretty well. I've heard the Alex Caruso comp. I don't know if that's, hey, it's a white guy with a headband, but Richie's 23, and the deal with pros is they want to get to that second contract as soon as possible. So if BYU wants Richie back, they're going to have to utilize some of those NIL funds, because if he wants his NBA career to start, I wouldn't blame him.
Well, I would expect if Richie comes back that I think that his number is going to be pretty high.
Yeah.
But I think that BYU would be willing to pay it, because I think if you put Richie Saunders, I almost called him Richie Cunningham, but if you put Richie Saunders with AJ DeBanca, I mean, your wings right now, you got two of the best wings in the country, period, point blank. And let's say the Jaeger goes, Dallin Hall is your point guard. You still have one of the best point guards in the Big 12. That triumvirate right there, right before you even get into the rest of the roster. I mean, that triumvirate right there can compete with anybody in the country.
Are you a Rush fan by chance? The Holy Triumvirate rock group Rush?
I am not, but I do know some of their music. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, before we get to Bama, just give me your takeaways. BYU, they beat a really tough VCU team. That was the tough 6-11 matchup. Started out a little hairy, then they kind of settled in. And then just a high-level game against a Wisconsin team that runs an offense that is modernized. This is not Bo Ryan's Wisconsin Badgers. And, the Tanjay kid goes for 37. Ultimately, they were able to get out to a good lead and hold them off down the stretch. So before we get to Bama, what's your take on BYU getting to the Sweet 16 for the first time since Jimmer was making it rain?
They played extremely well this weekend. I was pleasantly surprised with how well they handled VCU's physicality. I thought that would be a tough matchup for them in terms of VCU's athleticism, how physical they are. Clearly, the Big 12 has been really good to BYU because the physicality that VCU played with didn't bother them one bit. And because of that, the skill was able to take over, and they were able to win the game going away. The Wisconsin game, that was kind of like both teams kind of looking at each other in the mirror. They played the same way, and they got up and down the same way. The Tanji kid was special, and he was just terrific shot making, and Richie Saunders was amazing in that game. And I thought Jaeger was really good. I thought Trey Stewart made big, timely plays that won't show up on the box sheet. Mag getting that one stop on Tanjay down the stretch in the last possession of the game. It was just a terrific performance on both ends of the floor, all around by BYU, and frankly, they really earned that Sweet 16 appearance that we're going to see on Thursday.
So BYU holds the unfortunate record of 32 NCAA appearances without a Final Four. It's most in college basketball, and I'm not going to go as far as to say this is the year they break it, because if they beat Bama, they probably get Duke, so let's not go there yet, but let's hone in on Bama. And there's a narrative that Alabama kind of stumbled down the stretch when they went 7-5. But when you look closer, their 5 losses were to Auburn.
Yeah, look at their 5 losses.
Yeah, like Auburn, number 1 overall seed, on the road at Mizzou, Tennessee, and then Florida twice. And Florida's awesome. Bama is like Wisconsin on steroids, and they play a very similar style to Brigham Young. Both these teams are top 10 offensive efficiency. Bama's the highest paced team in college basketball. Offensively, there's nothing they don't do well. Now, defensively, they're not an elite team, but the metrics would show that they're a little bit better defensively than BYU. BYU is actually 248th in the country at guarding the 3, and Bama at least is top 25. So it feels like first to 90 wins. Bama opened up as a 5.5-point favorite. The line moved twice towards BYU. It settled at 4.5. So this is a game BYU can certainly win, but it's going to be a tough ask because Bama, like I said, Wisconsin, but with more speed and athleticism, feels like Caba's going to have to play out of his mind because he's the elite athlete that Brigham Young has. But what do you make of this Sweet 16 matchup? How does BYU get this done?
So the difficult thing with Bama is that they don't have a weakness offensively. Their guard play is special. They have what is Grant's last name?
Nelson.
The 7-foot Grant Nelson. Grant Nelson's a 7-footer who's his skill level, his size, his shooting, his athleticism, and he gets that all done at 7 feet. And then they have another couple of 6'10" guys that kind of jump to the moon. But their guards and their shooting are special. Obviously, Mark Sears is one of the best guards and best players in the country. But they also have other guards that are really, really good. So you're going to have to contain their dribble. Then you have to contain their shooting because those guys, they get up a ton of threes. And then, by the way, you have to contain Grant Nelson. Probably the best way to contain him is to get him into foul trouble because he's susceptible to that. And then, by the way, you have to keep him off the boards. I don't think that it's an impossible ask for BYU to win this game because I think that they've seen Houston multiple times. They've seen they've seen greatness at this level multiple times in the Big 12 conference. So there's not going to be a fear factor. There's not going to be, hey, Alabama's going to show up and they have a 10-point lead just because they have Bama on their uniforms. It's not going to be that kind of party. But it's still, a tough ask because Bama's, so good and so well-rounded. I think it's going to be a terrific game, that being said, because, what Bama does, that's what BYU does. They're going to get up and down. They're going to shoot threes. I think this game is going to be played in the 80s. And I think the key for BYU is to try and play from ahead. And, if you play from ahead, then, those shots start to mean something, right? Like, the threes start to mean something. It's a lot less free flowing. It's a lot less carefree. But Sears, I think, you gotta figure out a way to just, try to limit the damage that Sears does because he's so good with his left hand. He's a 3-level scorer. He puts, but even if he doesn't finish on the interior, he puts stress on you defensively to where their bigs could come out of nowhere and offensive rebound. There's just a lot to deal with on the scouting report dealing with Alabama. But hey, that's why a couple things. That's why they're one of the top 7-8 teams in the country, and if you want to go to a Final Four, you're going to have to eventually beat those kind of teams. So, we'll see if BYU's up for the challenge.
You fill out a bracket?
I did not.
All right.
I forgot.
All right, man. Well, look, good stuff today. It's nice to have somebody as plugged in as you are to kind of help us understand the landscape. So enjoy the warm weather. TJ, reach out if you need, okay? Be good.
Appreciate you, my guy. Thank you so much.
All right, Tony Jones from The Athletic, brought to you today by our friends at Burt Brothers. With over 30 years of experience in nearly 30 locations, Burt Brothers ASE-certified technicians bring expertise and professionalism to every interaction. We're talking industry-leading warranties and low-price tire guarantees. It's a one-stop shop for reliable repairs and maintenance, from tires and alignments to fluids and brakes, offering a full range of automotive services tailored to meet your needs. Now offering value tire options such as Americas and Summit tires, starting at just $69 with warranties that go up to 70,000 miles. As one of the few AAA certified shops in Utah, Burt Brothers upholds the highest standards in automotive service. Stop by Burt Brothers or Tire Busters locations or schedule an appointment today to experience the trusted service that has made them a Utah favorite for over 3 decades. Burt Brothers, doing it better since day one. More information can be found at burtbrothers.com. I don't know how Big Head Tom the Monsters became Tom Haberstrow's theme song on the program, but I'm good with it. That's a good Northeast 90s band on a Tuesday afternoon. Tom Haberstrow, happy Tuesday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. So I wanted to get your reaction right out of the gates today of a story here locally that the University of Utah is, according to Pete Thamel, targeting Wes Wilcox for their general manager job. Now, Wes has been in the NBA since 2003, and he was the general manager of the Hawks for 3 years, 2015 to 2017. Alex Jensen, as you know, has been hired as the new coach out here, and Wes hired Alex as the G League coach for the Cavs, the Canton Charge, where Alex was the G League coach of the year and won a G League championship. I don't know if you know Wes at all, but this just is an interesting development because should Wes take the Utah job, Tom, he would be the highest ranking NBA front office member to take a college basketball front office job. So I just, as a guy that knows the league and obviously knows college hoops too, I wonder what you make of this.
Yeah, I think it's another sign that college sports is now pro sports. There's no blurry line anymore. There's an expansion of about 100 different NBA teams, or I guess pro basketball teams here in America, and it's big-time college sports. It's Utah. It's Villanova, who hires one of the Dunleavys to be the general manager of its team. It's Duke. It's all these organizations. These college programs are acting like pro sports, and the NIL completely changed the game where a guy like Wes Wilcox, who's working in an NBA front office, will take a job running the basketball ops for a college program. And I think it's another example, and with BYU getting A.J. Debonsa, another example that the Utah Jazz are not the only game in town in Utah. And in fact, I think with NIL changing and a changing of the guard in the NCAA, and I'm hailing from North Carolina, where in Charlotte, North Carolina, where there's a lot of debate about the future of the ACC. This is the brave new world, and I suspect this is only the beginning. This is not, I think, a trend or a fad. I think this is the second inning of a 9-inning game.
Can you, I know generally speaking what NBA general managers make, and Wes is an assistant GM, but once upon a time was a general manager. Any guesses as to what this type of salary would be to be a general manager of a P4 college basketball program? Like I said, Wes once upon a time was a GM and young enough that at some point probably could be that again. And if Utah wants to make this hire official, could this be creeping close to 7 figures? Could we be in that ballpark?
I would suspect so. I mean, to leave the NBA basketball ops game where there's 30 jobs, there's fewer jobs in the NBA to be the head general manager. But also when you're talking about leaving now with the Sacramento Kings that are not doing very well, it's a clear sign that Wes imagines a more lucrative or a better career opportunity at University of Utah. And it's not like he's going to a D3 school. This is a program that has a very proud history. And I think the relationships matter. The fact that he has that relationship with Jensen and is able to leverage those relationships. I think it's not totally about money. It's probably about upside too, is that, we do this a lot in our own jobs. Forget just basketball or NBA or media, is where do I have upward mobility? Is it in this one job where I have Monty McNair, who's the head decision maker over there in Sacramento? Do I have an opportunity to take over that position or get another GM job somewhere else? Maybe not, but I can tell you there's about 100 college programs who could use my skill set. And building that, I think, may be more appetizing for someone like Wes. And I think it's instructive about the paradigm shift, not just in the NBA, but I think in college sports at large.
Fill out a bracket this year, Tommy?
I did, and it's been busted about 1,000 times over. I still have Duke winning it all, but that's my only hope.
So do you run into the same thing I run into every year around this time where your aunt sends you a text saying, I have to fill out a bracket for work and you're an expert. Can you please do this? And you have to say nobody's an expert with this tournament?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And what I do is it's inversely correlated to how much college basketball I watch, how often I pick upsets. If I don't watch a lot of college basketball, my risk-reward strategy is basically take all of the Cinderellas because it'll make me look smart. The high end is that like people are like, how did you see Drake going to the Final Four? Oh yeah, I really believed in their system. When it's really I didn't watch any college hoops, and so I'm hoping that one of these long shots hit, and it makes me look smart. The problem with that strategy, Spence, is if none of the Cinderellas, if there are no Cinderellas, then you're something in like the 17th percentile, which I think is what my bracket is right now.
Well, and let's be very clear. There are no Cinderellas left. Not one. Don't give me Arkansas. Cal has like 4 pros. They just couldn't stay healthy all year. Like there's not one Cinderella left. Is this a moment in time, or is it the new reality of what we're going to deal with in this tournament?
It is interesting. I was just listening to the KOC podcast with Chris Vernon, and they were discussing how college coaches like John Calipari, Rick Pitino, John Shire at Duke, they might not even go recruiting at the high school level anymore because they can just pluck from the transfer portal. And it makes me wonder, like, for Cinderella teams, mid-majors, if they're getting depleted or at least not getting their best effort in tournament time because these guys are already checked out in some ways, being like, yeah, I've already got a commitment or I've already got a letter of intent. I don't even know what the word is. Any sort of understanding that I'm out of here in a month and I've already secured my next spot. I don't know whether this is a fluke that we have no Cinderellas, but I think the way that we look at mid-majors and Cinderella teams, like George Mason of the past, these St. Peter's of the past, I think it's a different approach now where it used to be, hey, that kid's going to stay there all 4 years or maybe at least 3 years and then maybe transfer into a big D1 program, P4 program. But now it seems like everything's just a stepping stone to the next spot. And I went to Wake Forest, and it's really hard to imagine what the future of a program like Wake Forest that draws upon, an undergrad pool of 5,000 students. We just don't have the alumni that some of these other schools can boast. And how do we compete with UNC and Duke? And the question is, I think universal. Tony Bennett stepped away from UVA because he's like, this game is totally different. I'm constantly recruiting from under my own roof. And I think it's different. I'm not going to say it's better or worse, but it's different when guys like Tony Bennett walk away, or Nick Saban, or whomever you want to point to, these all-time greats, these legends who are stepping away and saying, I'm not cut out for this new world. And maybe it's because they're soft. I would hate to imagine that these guys who have won more than we can imagine winning at any profession and saying, I don't like where this is headed. And I'm guessing that there's probably a lot of young coaches who are aspiring, ambitious young coaches who say, step aside, John Calipari. We got next.
And I do have to wonder, because you make a really, really good point. I mean, once upon a time, it wasn't just a narrative. It was the reality that once you experience the luxury of the pros, you never wanted to go back to college where you had to take a flight to Lincoln and drive 4 hours to Gretna, Nebraska to scout a sophomore and, attempt to get him to sign on the dotted line to play for your team. If we're now in the new reality where you don't have to do that anymore, and there are colleges now as a result of NIL and transfer portal and the things you have to do economically to keep up are willing to pay you 7 figures, do you think we'll see more coaches or front office executives in pro basketball to decide, you know what, the college life isn't what it used to be, and it's not too bad. I'm going to go do that for a while.
Well, you said pro basketball, and I think it really is. College sports is pro basketball.
Sure.
The kids are getting money, whether it's through an intermediary or not. And so I don't think it's all that different. And I mean, if you hear I've heard, but I don't know if it's confirmed or if it's out. AJ DeBonsa, like what he was asking for, or what these number one prospects or recruits are being are asking for from these college programs. It's pros. It's the pros. Like these are ultimatums or at least asking prices, a package that you would imagine Cooper Flagg is asking the number one draft team, the team that wins the lottery. It seems like we're headed to a place where the transfer portal, if we're not already there, the transfer portal is just the decision all over again with LeBron James in 2010. And I'm not casting any dispersions about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying we're here, and the college hoops that we grew up. I mean, think about it this way: Stephen Curry at Davidson, right? We know that he pretty much finished his he didn't transfer out. And in this day and age, it's hard to imagine Stephen Curry having as much success at Davidson without transferring to UNC or to Duke. And you know how I know that answer? Because his brother did that. His younger brother, coming up a few years later, went to Liberty when he couldn't get any other offers and became one of the best scorers in the nation as a freshman and transferred to Duke to finish out his college career. So I think this is where it was all going. But, for me, it's like I got to get used to this. The NBA announced today that they're looking to expand to Europe and create these franchises or a semi-league over in Europe. And I'm like, how close are we to the NBA going to Duke? I mean, Adam Silver went to Duke himself and is just like, I mean, can the NBA create an NCAA rival and say like, hey, Duke, Michigan State, Kentucky, why don't we create an NBA-sponsored subdivision where you guys can compete against NBA teams too? And that concept, I think, would seem so asinine 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But as we've seen the evolution of college sports and the NBA expanding overseas, you have to wonder, how are we not looking under our own, inside our own borders about how the NBA can expand?
All right, Tom, it is timely to have you on the show today as the unserious Utah Jazz welcome in the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. And you recently on the Substack and on Yahoo Sports, DNP rest, quiet quitting, and death threats, the current state of tanking for Cooper Flagg. And, of course, we are kind of like the market that everybody's talking about, in addition to some other teams as well, that clearly finding a way to circumvent the rules. And unfortunately, the Jazz haven't been able to circumvent all of them with that $100,000 fine. But there are sneaky ways around it. Walker Kessler suddenly is Ray Allen circa 1996. He's just shooting like 10 threes a game, which is hilarious to me. And the Jazz and other teams have found a way to, okay, hey, you want us to play our guys? Sure, we'll play them, but not when it counts. So let's get into it. Unpack what you wrote. What should we know about this current trend in pro basketball, in the NBA? I'll just say the NBA.
Yeah, the NBA. The first thing I'll say with regards to the Utah Jazz is don't hate the player, hate the game.
For sure.
Is the Utah Jazz, just like any rational organization, is responding to an incentive structure that rewards losing. That's bottom line, is the Utah Jazz are looking at a system in which, like, it's as if in high school, if you flunk a test, you get more recess. Or if you flunk a test, you get early dismissal. Or if you flunk a test, you're going to get a case of beer after school. Like, when you put this in front of NBA teams, NBA franchises, that the more you lose, the better chance you have that Cooper Flagg, we can't hate the player, hate the game. And so this is, to me, a reflection what you see with Walker Kessler, or what you see with the Toronto Raptors, where Scotty Barnes, who is an all-star in the last couple of years, is routinely getting benched in crunch time because they want ping pong balls. This is all a reflection of a backward system that rewards incompetence in the form of losing games. And I don't think people have really thought about this in the gambling era. And that phrase in the headline, death threats. If you're an NBA coach and you're having to tank as part of the job, you get it. This is the way it's set up. In a gambling era, now the eyes are on you because you're the one pulling Scotty Barnes from the game. You're the one pulling C.J. McCollum from the New Orleans Pelicans or Zion Williamson. You're the one whose Lauri Markkanen is getting pulled in the second half and the over-under is at 17 points and he's at 16 points. Who am I going to yell at? Well, I could yell at Lauri Markkanen, or I could yell at Will Hardy, or I could yell at Scotty Barnes, but really he doesn't have power over this. It's his coach. And so in a gambling era, this tanking becomes a lot more problematic. And what I wrote about was there's been a wave of toxic messages, death threats to NBA personnel, whether it's players, GMs, coaches, on the team side, more so than usual because of this gambling aspect, which is fans in the arena or at home on their couch have money on the line on these over-unders or on these bets. And when a coach tanks or when a team tanks, guess who they're going to yell at? Guess who they're going to spew all their anger at? It's the coaches. It's the players. And this was a different dynamic, 10 years ago before gambling was legalized at the federal level. But now I think fans and bettors all feel like they have the agency and the right to take it out on these human beings. And I think we're on a slippery slope here. I think the NBA has created this problem unintentionally, and they've got to figure out a way to safely solve this problem, which is betting and bettors, gamblers feel like they need to take it out on these players and coaches for losing these bets. And it is kind of a farce sometimes when you're looking at the way these teams are acting on the floor. And I just feel like we're going down a path we do not want to go down. And I hope that there's a solution to this problem, because just like anything else, it's not a problem until it is.
And I think it's a problem on a number of different levels. And yes, I do approach this for what I do, with what I do for a living every day, and trying to make our local basketball team interesting has been really hard. And so, of course, we've talked a lot about prospects and Cooper Flagg and Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper and everything, and try to help the fans understand exactly why they're doing what they're doing. And as I've said all year, they're doing the right thing. It just sucks. But if we move into solution-based conversation, what does that sound like? Because it's interesting. You wrote a great piece this week. Bon Temps on ESPN wrote a great piece this week. They've already tried solutions with flattening the lottery odds. Bottom three teams all have the same 14% chance of getting one. Player participation policy, which has not worked at all. You're a smart guy. If Adam Silver called you and was like, Tom, help me out here, what do we do? What would you say to him?
Well, I would say there has to be an incentive structure that aligns winning with getting talent in the pipeline. We're in the sense of like your goal is to win games, and we're not going to reward incompetence. I am open to the idea of creating a free agency for draft prospects rather than a straight lottery for a descending number of wins that you have in the record column. I'll put it this way. We talked about it on Basketball Illuminati this week with Amin El-Hassan. He wrote 10 years ago, Amin El-Hassan, whose show on Oddball you can find on YouTube and Metal Arc Media. Amin wrote at ESPN.com when I was a colleague of his then, he said we should abolish the draft and create a draft free agency where if you have a lower record, a worse record, you get more cap space to offer Cooper Flagg. Okay? So in essence, you have to prove to Cooper Flagg that you deserve his play. It's not that you get him automatically because you're bad. It's that you might have a little bit more to offer him, more playing time, more money, and he can make the decision. And what that does is that incentivizes teams to be smarter, to be better, to be more functioning at a higher level. And that, I think, will help the system be more, I guess, honorable and a better product, is that all these organizations aren't incentivized to be as bad as possible, where you reward competence. That, yes, the Utah Jazz might have lost 40 more games than they won, but at least they can make a pitch to Cooper Flagg to explain why they're a better opportunity than, say, playing next to Victor Wembanyama. That's a tough ask, for these organizations to prove that they deserve. Like, imagine if the Toronto Raptors have to make the pitch to Cooper Flagg. What would it take? But here's the thing, Spence. We're not very far away from the next Cooper Flagg, whether it's AJ DeBonsa or whether it's, some son of an NBA player we don't really know yet, to say, no, I'm good if New Orleans wins it all, wins the number one pick. Say, no, I'm good. And that is really embarrassing. And we're not too far away from that, where suddenly if you win the number one overall pick, you don't just get the player. And I think we've seen that in some level in the past with Eli Manning, and I think Elway might have done it too. But I think we're setting up ourselves for a similar situation where if we don't solve this problem, there's a lot of different ways this could go sideways.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'll phrase the question like this, and I'm not leading the witness. You're on the radio in Salt Lake, but I'm not leading the witness. If we look at, I'll just throw, let's do the 4 teams most likely to grab number 1, because I'll leave San Antonio's side because I do not even want to entertain the idea of San Antonio getting 1 and drafting Cooper Flagg to play with Wemby. And I'll leave Philly aside because they don't deserve it either. I'll say Charlotte, Washington, New Orleans, Utah. If you were Cooper Flagg's dad, where would you want your son to play next year?
Ooh, it's a great question. I think Danny Ainge is a great asset. I think Will Hardy, you get him in the room. I think there's a lot more, a stronger track record getting those 2 people in front of Cooper Flagg with the lineage with Greg Popovich. Danny Ainge winning a championship with Boston, being a BYU guy. I think Utah might have the leg up there. And Charlotte is still establishing its identity. New Orleans just got Zion Williamson and is still trying to figure that out. They might have the best player, in-house to help that decision in terms of the star power. But in terms of injuries and all that has gone wrong for Zion Williamson as an NBA player, I'm not so sure that's a selling point. But in terms of a blank canvas with Danny Ainge, new ownership, an exciting city that is building around its sports teams, there seems to be a lot of excitement in the state of Utah with basketball. I would say Utah is a pretty convincing case to win the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes. But it's not an open and shut case. I'll just say that.
No, it's not. And I do think you could do worse than playing for Will Hardy, who I like a lot. And I'm just hoping at some point Danny and Justin and ownership give Will a fighting chance. He just hasn't had one. He had some decent rosters, and I think he's maximized every roster he's had so far. But you could do a lot worse than our situation out here. And, obviously I'm hoping for that for a number of different reasons. But it's been kind of an interesting topic over the past week and a half or so, as Sarah Todd from the Deseret News, a good friend of the program, joined us yesterday. And, she's clearly being fed information from the front office trying to propagate a message. And the message, Tom, is the following, which is new. It's not a rebuild. The last 3 years have been the teardown. And the rebuild now starts, which is a little silly. The rebuild starts when you trade your 2 stars and your coach walks away and your general manager decides he doesn't want to work here. There's a little revisionist history here. But what do you make of now this new walking line from those behind closed doors with Utah Jazz that, no, we haven't even started the rebuild because we've taken 3 years to tear it down?
Ooh, yeah. I'm not totally on board with that idea, is that now they've started rebuilding. I think it helps to make everyone feel better that this is part of the process, that this is just the way things go in the NBA. And look at OKC. Look, they tore it down for 3 years, and now they're the favorites to win the NBA title, and they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. As much as that is a story or a model to try to duplicate, there are a lot of other cases of teams that, by the way, Charlotte, by the way, Sacramento, New Orleans got Zion Williamson, and still he's playing at an all-NBA level right now when he's playing, but still they're in the lottery, at the top of the lottery. There are a lot of examples of teams that could argue that they're still tearing down. Charlotte would argue probably they're in the tearing down process. So when does that tear down end, and where does the rebuild begin? It's probably in the eye of the beholder. But I would say for Utah, I'm curious, what is the response there? Because nationally, I don't think people are blaming Walker Kessler and Will Hardy and the team. I'm wondering how the fans are responding to this. Are they like all in on the tank, or are they like, this is a mockery of the Utah Jazz basketball?
So it's interesting. It's a good question, because what we have is some examples that would indicate two different things. Example one is the building's full. I think I've been to 10 games, thereabouts, and the building's full every night. The fans are there. It does not look like some of the empty venues I see on television if I'm flipping through NBA games with other bad teams and fans not showing up. So there's that. Now, on the counter to that is we have some data about TV ratings, and during the Mitchell Gobert heydays, the Quinn Snyder-led teams that were really fun and really exciting, but never fully able to get it done in the postseason. My understanding is for 3 years, local TV ratings went Golden State 1, Utah 2. And we have had the third biggest fall in our local TV ratings. So fans at home not watching on television, but the building is still full. So we've got two different directions, Tom. Not really sure what to make of it.
Yeah, and I hear that in other sports too, that MLS, we have an MLS team here in Charlotte, has amazing attendance, but no one watches it. And I wonder if that's reflective of the sport or the technology, that maybe there are certain sports or certain sports teams that resonate from an in-game experience more so than a viewing experience at home, a television experience. You know, on the Blazers, I do the Blazers broadcast as the analytics insider, so I get a little bit of a view on how the game is marketed and how fans are in love with a couple of the players on the team, like Danny Avdia and Tamani Kamara, because they play really hard. And, like, you don't have to love basketball to watch these guys. And some of these guys, you know, on the Utah Jazz that you watch, and you're like, that guy looks like he will run through a wall for Will Hardy, you know, or he will run through a wall for the Utah Jazz. And that's what I think people will fill the seats for, is a team that really works hard and is fun to watch. And I think Will Hardy did talk about this recently, is like, we play with a lot of passion and joy, and I hope people feel that. Like when Walker Kessler's bombing away from three, the whole bench is standing up, supporting him. And I'm like, that is so interesting to me, is that every time Walker launches, like, the bench is 1,000% supporting him and excited. Now, some people might say that's like Harlem Globetrotters, is that like players are, you know, laughing at him, not laughing with him, in a sense where it's like, oh my gosh, look at Walker Kessler bombing away like he's Ray Allen. But I do think there's something to that people enjoy going to the games, the Utah Jazz games, because it's a great in-game experience. And that is so interesting in today's era, is the difference between in-game experience and at-home experience. And what that says about, I think, sports in general is, I think a lot of people are feeling like, I'll just catch the game on YouTube afterwards. I don't necessarily need to watch it live. But, hey, if my buddy has tickets to go to the MLS game, I'm there, and I probably won't watch afterwards. Isn't that weird that we have that kind of in-game but also not TV experience, where when we were growing up, Spence, it was hand in hand. Like, I can't imagine being passionate about it, the Red Sox, and not watching them every single night in the same way that all my Yankees fans friends and New York Rangers friends, they're obsessed both watching on TV and trying like heck to get to these games. And maybe this is just a changing fan dynamic. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting to consider. Part of me believes, like, the in-game experience, if you're on a date, if you're with friends or coworkers, you can go sit in a suite if your work has a suite, have a couple of beers or whatever, and have some dinner and enjoy it. But they're not very watchable. So if you're at home only watching on TV, you're not going to enjoy it because they're no good.
I also think, and I'm curious how the Utah Jazz handle this, is ticket prices are a pretty big variable here.
Yeah.
Is in Charlotte, I have 2 kids, a wife, taking the 4 of us going to the game, it's going to be pretty expensive to go to an NBA game. And if you don't take the kids, you got to get a babysitter and you got to pay for parking and you go out to dinner. I think it prices out not just a lot of families, but me, like thinking about that and how much money it costs to go to these games. And I do think going to a game and half the arena is empty adds to the unfulfillment of the experience. So, like, I do think the NBA and other organizations do have to get better at making sure that the arena is filled, because I do think that adds to the experience. Why do people want to go to Cameron Indoor and watch a college basketball game? Because it's packed, because people are on top of each other. It's exciting. There's the fans. You can feel it, the passion. And when you go to some of these corporate arenas where half the bowl is empty, it feels pretty hollow. And I do think people are thirsty for those, community excitement, communal experiences that maybe coming out of COVID, we're just so desperate for. And I do think the Utah Jazz, if you watch their end game scenarios where they're close games, man, people are very invested. They love it. And I think that's a good lesson for, people who are decrying the world of tanking. I think it is interesting that Utah Jazz fans continue to show up and continue to really care about the product.
Yeah, and, kind of like the Packers, Green Bay, Jazz during the winter only show in town. It's snowy and cold outside. Let's get out of the house and go to a game. But Jazz fans rule, man. They always have, and I just hope they're rewarded with their commitment, loyalty, with some sort of tangible winning team sometime soon. But before I set you loose, there's also this conversation about what the Jazz do should they land Cooper Flagg at 1. And again, 2 different directions. I'll kind of outline them, then give you the space, and we'll set you loose for a Tuesday. And Sarah did a really good job of outlining this. So you land Cooper Flagg at 1, okay? So one direction is Cooper Flagg, Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen. All right, we got something. Okay, front court with some promise. You keep Markkanen around to help Cooper understand what it is to be a pro, Walker, rim protector, stuff like that. Direction number 2 is, and I don't know if she's getting this from the front office. Part of me wonders because Sarah's plugged in. Direction number 2 is, okay, now we start the rebuild, and our timeline starts with him. And therefore, everyone is on the table to be moved, including Markkanen, who can be traded this offseason, including Walker Kessler. I have a hard time believing they trade Walker. But those are the 2 directions, okay? Move forward with Cooper as your linchpin and good vets around him like Walker and Lauri, and let's see what sort of hand we've been dealt. Or the rebuild actually starts now that we have Cooper Flagg, and we're looking at A.J. DeBanza and the Boozer kids or whatever this next draft. And next year is going to feel very similar to this year where they're essentially tanking again. What do you think they do should they grab Cooper Flagg at 1?
I'd imagine they're looking over at the San Antonio Spurs and saying, yeah, that looks pretty good.
Yep.
Wait, we get Stephon Castle and then perhaps another top 5 pick while Victor Wembanyama's 20 years old? Okay, where do I sign? I think that is an appealing option, is take a couple more bites at the apple once you get Cooper Flagg, because here's the thing. He's 18 years old. He might not be ready. Yeah, he can do this at college basketball with a lot of the best college basketball players already in the NBA, because that's how it is in college basketball now. He might need a couple years to really make that impact. So while Cooper Flagg has an MVP caliber upside, he's still 18 years old. He should be in high school right now. And so I think there's an argument to say, do what the San Antonio Spurs do. Do not rebuild overnight, or do not build a contender overnight, because you could get a Steph Castle. This was a down year in the draft. Zach Edey, Steph Castle, Zachary Risache. But imagine if Cooper Flagg was in this class and Victor Wembanyama. I know you didn't want to entice that possibility, but it is very interesting that, Stephon Castle is the best prospect in that class, it looks like. But that was a pretty bad draft class. That Victor Wembanyama could have a much better player than Stephon Castle if things broke right in any normal year. So I think Lowry can kind of help him in year one, in the same way that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had Chris Paul, in the same way that other elite players had kind of an all-star Hall of Famer type to mentor them in their first couple of years. But you also look at, the New Orleans Pelicans with Anthony Davis and the New Orleans Pelicans with Zion Williamson. Is even though you had kind of these vets alongside them, it doesn't always equate to championship contention at any point. So, bottom line, I think the San Antonio Spurs are always looked at as kind of the beacon, the blueprint for rebuilds. And I think they're justifying a lot of teams by slow playing it with Cooper Flagg.
Tom, you are the man. Appreciate the time on this Tuesday afternoon. Maybe next time we'll actually talk some actual basketball, but some interesting topics for today, buddy. So I appreciate the time. Be good, all right?
Yeah, over under on Walker. You know what? Not even going to go there. Walker Kessler threes, but it'll be interesting to watch. I'm here for it.
There it is. The great Tom Haberstroh. TomTheFinder.com is the Substack. He writes for Yahoo Sports. He's on the Blazers analytics team for their broadcast. He's got like 5 different podcasts. My man is busy. Just get him on social media. At Tom Haberstroh is where you find him. Tommy stops by today, courtesy of our friends at IFA Country Stores. IFA Country Stores has everything you need to care for your lawn, no matter its size or shape. Their 4+ lawn care program can promote a healthy green lawn for you this summer. They're the same products used at many local sports fields, golf courses, and city parks. You can consult IFA's team of experts for your yard this season. Visit them online at ifa.coop or stop by one of the 18 Utah stores today. IFA Country Stores, helping to grow the things that you love. All right, we will catch a quick break. Misbehave with the clock. We're going to do a quick reset coming up. Then we'll launch into the 4 o'clock hour, which is Tim McMahon and Dave Fox on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. It's good to have you along for the ride right here on ESPN 700. All right, we got 2 hours down, 2 hours to go on the program. Tuesday afternoon, 67 degrees, sunny, downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Spring has arrived, and it might be time for you to get new windows. Here's the deal. If you need new windows now, or if you need new windows potentially coming up in a few months, maybe you're buying or selling a home, call my friends at Advanced Window Products today. Because if you need windows now or later, if you call today, you're just going to lock in an unbelievable deal. You can save $2,500 when you purchase 10 windows or more. So new year, new windows special, $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more with our friends at Advanced Window Products. For you Ute football fans, this is Nate Orchard. This is the mayor of Sac Lake City, Jake Weber, our buddies, great family company. They're awesome people, local Utah company. We're talking about nearly 40 years of servicing Utah, and they've got great rebates and warranties that you can transfer to the next homeowner. It's a lifetime warranty serviced by a local team, rebates with Enbridge Energy, also financing available as well. You can save now, and you can pay later with payments as low as $150 a month. So give them a call today at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, 850-9100, or online at advancedwindows.com. Our good friends at Advanced Window Products. 4 o'clock hour today is going to be Tim McMahon, one of our favorites to talk NBA basketball with, Utah Jazz basketball with as well. Dave Fox rolls by the program coming up in just a little bit. I was on TV with Dave last night. We call it 5 Questions with Spence. We do it every couple of weeks with our friends over at KMYU, so you can check that out online if you missed it. Been a busy show so far, reacting to the news that Pete Thamel is reporting from ESPN. He covers college athletics, that Wes Wilcox might be on his way to be the new general manager of the Utah men's basketball program. Should Wes take the job, he will instantly become the highest-ranking NBA official to take a college job, signaling, of course, a lot of intent from the Utah men's basketball program, as Alex Jensen was officially introduced 8 days ago today. Coach Chill in the mix. Randolph Chilius has been hired as well. Tony Jones stopped by to break down that hire. And then some good stuff from Tom Haberstroh today. Tom wrote a piece about the new tanking in the NBA, which essentially is, okay, if you're going to fine us for sitting stars, then we will play the stars, then we'll just sit them during crunch time. Jazz are doing it. Washington's doing it. Charlotte's doing it. Philadelphia's doing it. San Antonio's, everybody's doing it now. And they're trying to get in the mix to draft this young man who plays for Duke. His name is Cooper Flagg. You've probably heard of him. Jazz were fined $100,000 for violating the league's player participation policy involving Larry Markkinen after sitting against the Washington Wizards. It was a 9-game stretch where Larry didn't play. But the Sixers, they've got a top 6 protected first-round pick. So they're sitting Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and everybody's doing it. So some good stuff from Tom Haberstroh on the program today. Obviously, we are a couple of days away from the Madness of March resuming. The round of 16, where BYU finds themselves, will take place on Thursday evening and then continue through Friday. Thursday's a great slate. Both, look, I understand the frustration and maybe the disappointment that there are no Cinderellas left. And there, by the way, when I say no Cinderellas left, I mean 0. Okay, don't give me Arkansas as a Cinderella. John Calipari has like 4 NBA players on that roster. They just couldn't get healthy. They were inconsistent to start the year. So Arkansas, not a Cinderella. They're going to take on Texas Tech. That's going to be a really good game. But Thursday's action starts with BYU, Alabama, and then it's Maryland, Florida, Arizona, Duke, Arkansas, Texas Tech. Then continuing on Friday, Ole Miss, Michigan State, Kentucky, Tennessee, Michigan, Auburn, Purdue, and Houston. We're going to talk to our friends at Farmer and Chemist before we get Tim McMahon. Coming up in just a little bit. All right. We're going to catch a break. But before we do that, let's welcome my guy Jeff from Farmer and Chemist on a Tuesday afternoon. Jeff, happy Tuesday, sir.
Happy Tuesday.
Appreciate the time. Sorry for making you wait. Let's start with what you've helped me with, which is getting a good night's sleep and waking up without feeling hungover. I don't know how else to put it. I told you guys when we met, I've always had difficulty sleeping. I've tried a bunch of different sleep meds. I don't like any of them. because they either knock you out, you feel hungover, they're not effective. But you guys helped me out with some gummies that allowed me to get a full night's sleep and feel good in the morning. How can you help our listeners that have trouble sleeping?
Yeah, the gummies are great. We have 3 different what are called cannabinoids in there. So CBD, CBN, and a little THC. And so you really get the power of 3. And it's awesome. It works really well. It's a great, safe alternative to the prescription medications, which can be addictive, and you can become dependent on those, and you can wake up with a hangover, to your point. So, yeah, we just love to have people come in and ask us questions, and we can find the right product. If a gummy doesn't work, we also have tinctures or liquids that are an alternative. So the route of administration is kind of a thing that is important to people as well.
The other thing you guys have been able to help me out with, I've just celebrated a birthday, and I've just realized as I age, I'm probably going to deal with some sort of nagging pain in some way, shape, or form if I want to do the things I enjoy doing. So I keep a little compartment of your problem solved in my golf bag, and if the shoulder fires up, the back fires up, I just go ahead and rub some of that on, and it seems to really do the trick. So for our listeners that suffer from physical pain, Jeff, how can you help them?
Yeah, the salves, to your point, are awesome as well. So it's a slightly different mixture. So we throw a different kind of cannabinoid in there. It's one it's called CBG, and it has THC in it and CBD as well. And again, you get triple cannabinoid. It's super awesome, very, very potent. They're great for elbows, backs, knees. Alternatively, sometimes people have arthritis in their hands, things like that. You probably don't want to put a salve on your hands. So we have a lotion as well. So, like we said before, we would love to have people come in, talk to us. We want to answer questions about how to use it, what's the right combination, what's the right way to take that route of administration, and we want to be there to help answer questions.
All right, Jeff, before I set you loose, tell our listeners about the special offer you have for them if they get a hold of you.
Mention ESPN 700, and you can either do that in the store in Midvale or online, and we will take 20% off any orders.
Jeff, thank you, sir. Enjoy the sunshine. We'll chat soon.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff from Farmer and Chemist. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. They are closed on Sundays. Historic Main Street in Midvale is where you find them. It's a really cool store. You can also go online at farmerandchemist.com. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Tim McMahon, Dave Fox. That's your 4 o'clock hour. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. Dave Fox will roll by later on. I was on TV with Dave last night, 10:35 KMYU. We do it every couple weeks. It's either 5 questions or talking Jazz. The Jazz welcome in John Morant, the Memphis Grizzlies tonight, which means Tim McMahon is in town, right? Tim, on a Tuesday, you must be in Salt Lake.
That's breaking news to me. No, don't think I'm in Salt Lake City tonight, buddy.
Have you been here once this year?
No.
Yeah, all right.
No, I have not. Maybe, perhaps, I'll make a Salt Lake City Summer League appearance. Certainly always enjoy that event. And listen, man, we'll see how those ping pong balls fall. I could be making regular appearances going into next season. We will just have to wait and see. But look, man, obviously there was just not a lot of reason for national interest in the Utah Jazz's rebuilding efforts. We'll call them this year.
You do not want to witness Walker Kessler channeling Glenn Rice via 1992?
You know, I still watch. I've got League Pass.
All right.
I still tune into the Jazz. I'm still watching. I'm still chit-chatting with people and, keeping up with things. But I just cannot sit here and tell you that in terms of my kind of umbrella of Western Conference teams, that the Jazz are a top priority at this point right now.
Yeah, we understand. But as you chit-chat throughout the course of your conversations, what's it like behind closed doors right now? I mean, none of this is easy, and they're front-facing about that. But what are, illuminate the audience a little bit. What are the tone and tenor of these conversations you're having with Jazz folk these days?
I mean, listen, nobody's enjoying this, is not happy, and the challenge is to hold these guys to a standard of competitiveness while there's a lot of actions being taken that indicate that competitiveness isn't a priority. They knew it was going to be a very difficult season, but they also knew they had to do what was in the long-term best interest of the franchise. I don't think there's any parties being held at the practice facility right now. It is what it is. It's unfortunately a miserable process.
There is some news about the local basketball scene. It's just not regarding the Utah Jazz. So Pete Thamel, your coworker over at ESPN, is reporting that the University of Utah, nothing is official yet, but Wes Wilcox has been in pro basketball since 2003. General manager at one point for Atlanta, hired Alex Jensen to coach the G League affiliate of the Cleveland Cavaliers. If he takes the Ute job, Tim, he would be the highest-ranking NBA front office member to take a college front office job. What's your reaction to the story that your coworker reported a couple of hours ago?
Well, I do know Wes. I like Wes. I respect Wes. I think it'd be a really good hire for Utah. And you mentioned the relationship that he has with Alex Jensen. So it makes a lot of sense to me. These guys have worked together. They succeeded together. Certainly there's a trust between them. And look, Wes is the assistant GM in Sacramento. Would I be maybe searching for good paths to get the hell out of Sacramento? Yeah, I would. Let's just be real about it.
Yeah.
It's a shaky franchise, man. And, it's a whole new world in college basketball, but that general manager spot is critical. And when you asked me before about Alex Jensen, and we talked about what are some of the challenges, I said, I don't know that he's a natural born recruiter. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be his strength. So it's going to be very important for him to have a staff in place that will be strong there. Wes Wilcox is a charismatic guy, smart guy, energetic guy. I could see him really being good in that role, which obviously it's an NIL world, but there's still major recruiting involved. This thing makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Is he even 40? I was trying to guess because, I don't know him. I know who he is, and my guess would be early 40s, late. Is he even 40 years old, Tim? Do you know?
Well, I'm putting you on speakerphone now since your Google apparently doesn't work. And let's see. Wes Wilcox is born in 1986, according to this.
Okay. So he's 39.
Yeah. Wait, it might not be the same Wes Wilcox.
Well, that sounds right. My guess was 40. It sounds right.
Yeah, no, he's 40-ish.
Okay.
I believe. He's like I said, he's a young, energetic guy. And I tell you, he's got a great collection of Jordan 1 lows. Every time I see him, he's got a fresh pair of Jordan 1 lows on. What's Utah's? Are they a Nike school?
Utah is an Under Armour school, but you know what? You brought up
be a tough transition.
when you brought up a soft spot for me. I think Utah badly needs to get out from the Under Armour deal. That's just my opinion.
Well, we'll see what happens. But my point is, Wes is a young, energetic guy with some swag. I could see him being really good in that NIL/recruiting area.
I wonder, and we just had your buddy Haberstroh on, because I know. Yeah, there you go. I know what NBA general managers make, and Wes is an assistant GM, a GM once upon a time. What would you guess Utah offered him? What do you think that deal looks like? Because, again, at the age of 39 or 40 or whatever it is, as an assistant GM, a GM once upon a time, it's kind of like Alex. I thought Alex would get an NBA head coaching gig. It didn't come to fruition, but Alex is still a young coach as well. So you have to make him, to your point, Sacramento's a cesspool, get out of there. But do you think this is a 7-figure contract to be the GM of a college basketball program?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I have no earthly idea what a college GM makes at a school like Utah. The only GM salary that I know in college basketball is Woj's, because it's been reported, just because it was such a massive pay cut for him. I would just be guessing. I would be throwing darts.
Fair enough. All right. Well, while we're in the space, both Tom Haberstroh and your buddy Tim Bontemps, along with Kevin Pelton this week, wrote about tanking and wrote about how it really has permeated into the NBA in a level that's somewhat new. Tanking is not new, but when a third of your league down the stretch isn't trying, it certainly makes for an unwatchable product, Tim. So what do you make of where we find ourselves, not just in Salt Lake, but in the ecosystem of the NBA, where, like I said, a third of the league is just unserious about winning the rest of the way?
Yeah, and it's a problem. And March basketball in the NBA is not – it's not cool. It's not fun. It's not competitive. I wouldn't want to buy tickets to watch and maybe the majority of March basketball games in the NBA. And so it's a problem with the product. And I love NBA basketball. I love the style of basketball that's played. Like, I push back, the 90s were great, blah, blah, blah. No, it's a more aesthetically pleasing, skilled, athletic, fun brand of basketball. This is bad for the league. They've got to do something to address it. They've taken measures. You got to take stronger measures. This has got to be a priority for the competition committee. I don't blame the teams. I don't blame the franchises. You have to do what's in the best interest of your franchise. That's your job. So take away the incentives. And, Bontemps and Pelton had a bunch of ideas in there. You got to make it. And I like the stuff where, hey, maybe it's the last 20 games. Maybe it's post All-Star break, where these lottery teams' wins count instead of losses in terms of stacking up the odds. You've got to make it in teams' best interest to play competitive basketball down the stretch of the season. Has to be a top priority for the NBA. This is not good, not fun, nothing that I would want to pay to watch, and so fix it.
So, any specific ideas that are your favorite? You reference, and Tim and Kevin, friends of the show, and they're obviously very good. And Tom has his own thoughts as well. I know this will never happen, but the European soccer relegation system completely works. NBA owners will never sign off on that, ever. But any of the solutions that have been presented kind of catch your eye at all?
Well, and like you said, you have to come up with solutions that have a chance to be approved, because other than that, we're just talking. We're just blowing hot air, right? So like relegation, okay, cool. That's never going to happen. But like the idea of, hey, your record until the All-Star break, the losses go towards your lottery odds. And after that, for lottery teams, the wins, you flip it. It's the wins that count towards, the landing at the top of the lottery standings. And because what you have happen a lot of times is it's like, obviously, look, the Jazz have been as egregious tanking this year as anybody, but is teams like the Philadelphia 76ers, where it's been a disappointing season. They tried, everything went haywire. It's been a disaster of a season, and now they're tanking to protect a top 6 protected pick, and those are a lot of times the most egregious tankers. The Mavericks a couple of years ago when they pulled the plug on the last 2 games of the season to protect a top 10 pick. I also thought they had another really interesting idea there, and you can do both of these things. Take off take away some of the freedom on the protections. It's either top 4, lottery, or unprotected, right? Don't stop dealing with these mid-lottery protections or, all those kind of things, because again, those are the ones where you have teams that otherwise should be competitive that have major incentive to tank. And so I think that there can be more than one measure or action taken to address this issue. And again, it's got to be a priority for the NBA. You got to put your teams in position where it's in their best interest to put the best possible product on the floor down the stretch of the season, instead of we got 12 teams, basically 10 or 12 teams that are just completely in full blown tankapalooza right now. It's barf-tastic.
Yeah, it's a third of the league. I wonder, this is going to sound like a silly question, but you've been on the show 5.5 years. You know that's the deal. Do you talk to people at the league office that view this as a priority? Because, I often say, we can yell about it all we want, but when you have just signed a $72 billion TV deal, they might roll your eyes at things we consider an issue. But does it feel like there's urgency from the league office to figure this out so we're just not dealing with months and months of unwatchable basketball?
I'll be honest with you. I personally have not talked to a lot of people in the league office about it. But if they don't think it's a priority, then they're completely fooling themselves. And I would say, as things get a spotlight put on them, then it tends to make it more of a priority. But you know what? It's not the first time we've written tanking stories. But the fact that a widespread tanking epidemic was leading the NBA page of ESPN yesterday, you think that's good for the league? You think that's not a complete embarrassment? I mean, it's a joke. So if it's not a priority, then I don't know, man. I don't know what they're looking at.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. There's no doubt. I mean, I've been talking about it for a long time, and it'd be one thing if it was just a few teams, but to your point, it's like a third of the league. I'm going to ask you a question I asked Tom, because Tom brought up an interesting point. At some point, will one of these really, really good prospects have a family or reps around them that do not want to go to the team that has the number 1 overall pick, a la Eli Manning and John Elway and rumors about Shedeur Sanders and all that. So if you're Cooper Flagg's reps, if you're Cooper Flagg's family, Charlotte, Washington, Utah, New Orleans, where do you want him to play? Where does he fit best? I'll just throw those 4 teams out because those are the 4 most likely teams as of now.
That's an interesting question. Honestly, New Orleans would probably be the easiest answer just because they've got another superstar level talent there. But and here's the thing though, there's this talk. Well, he might go back to Duke. Really? Do you think there's going to be a good team with the number 1 overall pick next year? The simple fact is, almost always the team with the number 1 overall pick is going to be pretty early in a rebuild. It is what it is, and I know there's NIL money. But it's not even about the raise that you're going to get next year. It's about the sooner you're going to get to your second contract when the really insane money starts. I don't buy this he might go back to Duke stuff. I will believe that when I see it. Just like I will believe that one of these guys is going to turn down a supermax extension of his rookie contract when I see it, or even a max extension, and qualifying offer. No, you're not. So look. In New Orleans, we'll see. I don't know who's going to be in charge there. We'll see how things play out this summer. I don't know if Zion's going to be back. I do think he's restored his value. Washington, honestly, you're kind of starting from scratch. And Utah, it'll be interesting if they get Cooper Flagg there in Salt Lake City. How competitive do the Jazz try to be next year? They've got Larry Markkanen's back might feel better by then. Who knows? That plantar fasciitis and Jordan Clarkson could probably ease up over the summer. Would they try to be as competitive as possible, or do you still kind of slow play? And do you maybe trade? Still trade some of these vets over the summer and slow play it and patiently build around Cooper Flag. These are discussions I'm sure that Danny Ainge, Justin Zanuck, Will Hardy, and the rest of the folks over there hope they can have this summer.
My guess is, and I'll be curious to what your take is, if they get Cooper, if the Jazz in second week of May grab number one and Cooper Flag is on the ground, I think they long game it again next year with that draft class, and namely the kids that's in our backyard and Ryan Smith, a BYU booster with AJ Debanta. I think if they get Cooper Flag, nobody's safe. I think that includes Lowry.
I think there is logic behind that. That's what I would say there. And, as you're trying to build around that type of talent, you obviously want to get a potential co-star on the same timeline. You look at like some of these teams that have been through that. I go back to like the Thunder team that didn't end up breaking through, but it was KD, Russ, Harden, back to back to back, and then they got really good really quick. So I think there would be some sound logic in that approach.
Warriors Heat tonight. Before I set you loose, at least there's an NBA game that holds some intrigue this evening. And honestly, that might be the only one because Sacramento's a mess, as you referenced. So what does that building sound like as Jimmy Butler is back in South Beach?
I don't think it'll be a warm reception. I think there'll be mixed emotions just because, look, man, the highs for Jimmy in Miami were high. Like he carried that team to a couple of finals. But man, this year, the first few months of the season were just so nasty and just so ugly and, unfortunate that I'd be surprised if there's not more boos than cheers.
All right, before I set you loose, I believe today is March 25th, and even though you didn't wish me a happy birthday last week, I will go ahead and – because I was, March, my birthday, that. I just must have missed your phone call. Sure. But why is today an important day for one Tim McMahon?
Well, in my defense, you've had a whole lot of birthdays, and at a certain point, it's like you've had so many,
yeah.
Ain't nothing special about it.
That's fair.
I've only had one book launch day. This is my very first book launch day. It might be my very last book launch day. But The Wonder Boy, Luka Doncic and the Curse of Greatness is available. You can order that bad boy on Amazon, wherever else you get books. Hopefully it's in bookstores there in Salt Lake City. There is a little bit of jazz stuff in there, certainly from their time matching up in the playoffs. But it's a pretty fascinating tale about the pressure on a franchise to build around a prodigy and just a little wee bit of a plot twist at the end there.
Well, congratulations, my friend. I know you worked hard on it, and I hope it goes well. So we'll set you loose. Enjoy the week, and we'll chat soon.
All right. Appreciate you, brother.
Tim McMahon covers the NBA for ESPN. His book on Luka Doncic and the Curse of Greatness, The Wonder Boy, is out right now. So check it out on his Twitter page at ESPN_McMahon is where you find him. All right, before we catch a break, it is nice today. Just took the station mascot, Duke, out for a bathroom break during our last break. You can feel the sun. Why am I bringing that up? Well, it's about to get really warm, okay? So if you're like me, that means it's golf season. It's hiking season. It's biking season. You are going to be out in the sun a lot. I did not know this until our new client on the program, Ogden Clinic Hadley Dermatology, educated all of us by letting us know that Utah is the #1 state in the United States of America in skin cancer diagnosis per capita. We live in the desert. It makes sense. When's the last time you had a comprehensive consultation and checkup? Probably not anytime soon, or anytime recently, right? And that's an issue. Now, I know Dr. Michael and Dr. Jason Hadley, so they force me to come in every year. They say, we know how much you play golf. We know how much you're outside. You need to come in and get checked out. And it is like a new lease on life when I walk out of that office and they tell me that I'm good. But they tell me I'm good because I go there consistently. When's the last time you got checked out? If you're listening to the show and you're a golfer, well, a skier too, because you're exposed to the sun, and you're a hiker and you're a biker, and you haven't been checked anytime recently, well, the good news is our friends at Ogden Clinic Hadley Dermatology are offering you a free consultation, which is an amazing deal. First of all, you're going to save a grip of money right out of the gate. Second of all, you'll get that peace of mind. So if you're listening and this is describing you, or if you're listening, it's describing your significant other or your son or your daughter, whatever, take advantage of this. Get checked out before the sun starts to beat down on you with their free skin consultation. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, if you're looking for a birthday gift for your significant other, they're offering you a 20% discount on Botox. Number three, pool season right around the corner. Don't be the dude who takes your shirt off and looks like a gorilla. They're offering you 25% off laser treatments. Get that back hair taken care of. Number four, do you have a teenager struggling with acne? Are you an adult that supplements your testosterone? Do you have acne on your back? Sorry for sounding gross. It's a real thing. They're offering acne treatments at a discounted rate. They also have products for hair loss. And if you have dry skin, it is a comprehensive stop for all of your skincare needs, offering a bunch of deals. For me, number one, free skin consultation. Just dial it in. Make your appointment with Ogden Clinic Hadley Dermatology today by dialing 801-657-5664. That's 801-657-5664, 801-657-5664, or you can visit them online at hadleydermatology.com. All right, we'll catch a quick break. Dave Fox joins us coming up on the other side. Then we'll get into the 5 o'clock hour of the program on this beautiful spring-like Tuesday afternoon right here on ESPN 700. Utah Jazz welcome in the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. That's the main local thing going on, at least something tangible as far as the game goes. Hockey Club back in action on Thursday. The Utah Hockey Club first puck will drop right when BYU gets rolling against Alabama. So fun week. Fun week. Our next guest joins us on a consistent basis. I was on television with him last night. He's a busy guy, Dave Fox, usually in studio, but in his car on his way to a very important event. Hello, David. How are you?
How's it going? Doing well.
Appreciate the time. So why don't we start with this cool thing you're doing tonight? Tell our listeners about it.
I am. This is the National Football Foundation banquet for high school football players. We honor the top 13 players based on their, what they do on the football field, in the classroom, in the community. It's a lot of fun. Halode Nada will be there. Nick Vigil, former Aggie, now Dallas Cowboy linebacker, will be there. So it's a lot of fun. A little event we do every year.
How many people said no before they landed on you?
Well, they must be repeatedly saying no, because this is probably about my, 12th, 13th year hosting it. So
okay. All right, Dave.
They keep trying.
Okay, no, fair. I'm just teasing. I know you've been doing it forever. Sounds like a cool event. Will we be seeing any highlights on tonight's Talkin' Sports hosted by the GOAT?
Well, tonight is Talkin' Jazz, and it's actually not hosted by the GOAT. The GOAT will be at the arena with the Jazz, and David James will be anchoring Talkin' Jazz tonight, since I'll be down here. But I am doing an interview with Halode and with Nick, and throughout the coming week, I will play those interviews on Talkin' Sports.
All right, good stuff. So, BYU, let's start a little BYU. BYU, Sweet 16, first time since one Jimmer James Taft Fredette was making a rain down in Provo. What stands out most, David, to you watching year one, Brigham Young under Kevin Young? That rhymes. I didn't mean to do that, but what do you think?
This is the second time this week you've rhymed when talking about Kevin Young, by the way. I listen to your show all the time,
Thank
so
you,
I know
sir.
that. Well, first of all, most important thing is we're particularly excited at Channel 2 because that game is on Channel 2. So it's an opportunity for us to have BYU on our air. And Spence, how the NCAA tournament works. There are so many vehicles for broadcasting, TNT, TBS, True TV, goes on and on. The first two rounds, we didn't get BYU, in the opening round, BYU or Utah State. So we're pretty excited. We had them on the round of 32 game, and then we'll have them again on the Sweet 16. So that's exciting there. The second thing is just how well – it's one of those things where, you keep expecting – if you're a glass half empty kind of guy, you keep waiting for the other shoe to fall. When are they going to lose? And they just keep playing great basketball. It's just unbelievable how, they're just mowing right through these teams, although that Wisconsin finish was amazing. Could have gone either way, I suppose. And then you circle all the way back to the beginning of the season, and there's always growing pains, new coach, new system, new philosophy, and it's going to take some time, but it sure didn't look that way back in November and December. So, those are two things that really stand out to me, how far this team has come and how good they've become and how competitive they are in this NCAA tournament.
University of Utah, since you and I last spoke on this program, made it official that Alex Jensen is the 17th head coach in the history of the program. So let's just start there. Then we'll kind of trickle down to the hire he's made and then the rumor about the hire that Utah basketball may be making soon. You were there at the press conference, saw you there. I was doing my show live from the Huntsman Center.
Yeah.
Takeaways, Dave, now that it's official and realistic expectations year one under AJ.
Well, before we get to expectations, for the fan base, for the Utes, for Ute Nation, you couldn't have a better hire. I think we all agree with that. And you and I both know Alex for a lot of years. I was actually calling games for the Utes on Channel 2 way back in the 90s when he was playing, got to know him quite a bit on the road. Just an absolutely great guy and extremely well respected in the NBA. And, from what I understand, this was a tough decision for him. They really enjoyed Dallas. I grew up in Dallas. I know how great Dallas is. It's a wonderful city, and he and his wife loved it there. So in that respect, I think it's very fortunate that the Utes are able to get him. Now you talk about expectations. A lot of this, we don't, Alex, he has been a head coach. It was in the G League. He was coach of the year. So we certainly know he can coach. But really nowadays, the bigger part of all this is what kind of financial support do you get? And Kevin Young got a ton of it at BYU, and it is paying incredible dividends, as we know, not only this year, but going into next year with the Bansa, and on it goes. So that's going to be the real curious thing. Now, there are certainly a lot of boosters, and you know this, Spence, and I know this, at the University of Utah with very deep pockets. So if they can execute that same type of plan that we've seen now in Provo, perhaps it'll be another success up here. I will say, you were talking about the guy they're about to hire to be their GM, and this is going on in programs everywhere. I mean, the college game is becoming such an NBA model to the point to where now we have general managers. It's just unbelievable. So that in and of itself shows that they're ready to take that next step. And if Alex gets that support, I think he's going to do just fine. I'll tell you, Spencer, that night of where he was introduced, after the press conference, he met briefly with a few people, and then they rushed him right out of there and right into a room full of donors. I mean, he hit the ground running. So they're doing the right things now. We'll just see how it pans out.
So one hire that is official broke a few days ago now. It's Rafael Chilius, who has spent a number of years in both pro and college basketball, little prep school Connecticut basketball as well, which ironically enough is very high level, but ultimately not a former Ute. And a lot of people still, I think, wondering and maybe even hoping a little bit that once the dust settles, there will be some former Utes on the bench. I'm on the record saying I don't really think that matters very much. Alex, obviously, former Ute, former Mr. Basketball in state circa 1994 at Viewmont High School. I do think if Andre wants to come, that's a hire you have to make. Beyond that, I don't really give a rip if it's former Utes, but some people disagree. So your reaction to the first hire and the fact that it's not Andre Miller or any other former Ute, did that surprise you?
Well, I wasn't surprised that it wasn't a former Ute because it's, like you said, it's just the first hire. There's still plenty of hires to go. You bring up an interesting point. You're right in some respects. It doesn't matter if it's a former Ute. What's matter is if it's somebody who's qualified to do the job and somebody that can work well with Alex. Now, we know Andre can coach. He's coaching right now. He's a G League head coach. So if Andre decides that he fits, or if Andre fits with Alex, then of course he's going to hire him. But Alex is going to do what's best for the program and what creates the right kind of continuity within his coaching staff. I assume that Alex and Andre have a decent relationship. I mean, I don't know that we know that much about it right now, but I don't think you can just automatically say, well, you've just got to go out and hire a bunch of former Utes and it's going to work. Now, Kevin Young, of course, he hired Burgess, who's a former Ute. But again, you've got to hire the best guy for the job. And when he made the first hire, again, I wasn't surprised that it's a former Ute. I was just a little surprised in who it was because I didn't know him. And you mentioned him coming out of an almost borderline high school academy. Yes, it's second level. I get that. But obviously Alex is doing what's right for the program and what's right for the type of coaching staff he wants to build. So, when you hire a guy like that, you just have to trust that he's going to do the right thing. It worked out in Provo, and now we'll see if it works out in Salt Lake. All that aside, I would love to see if Andre Miller was the next hire for Alex on this coaching staff. I think that'd be great.
Well, to be clear, most recently, Rafael Chilius was with the Memphis Grizzlies. He was at a Connecticut prep school, South Kent school prior to that, but he's been all over the place. UW, a bunch of NBA jobs. I mean, he has a very impressive resume. Very impressive resume. So, and ultimately, it's one thing to have the head coach you want. You have to have a good staff. And you referenced Kevin's staff. Yes, he hired Burge. And he's got, I think he has Charles Abuo. But out of, I think, 12 staffers, those are the only two with direct ties to Brigham Young. And once upon a time, Dave, Coach Majerus had Coach Judkins and Dick Hunsaker and one or two trainers. And Jerry Sloan had Phil Johnson and Gordy Chiesa and one trainer. Now these staffs are like 10 or 12 deep. So as Alex fills this out, I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of like what we've seen with Kevin down at BYU, maybe one or two Utes and maybe 9 or 10 guys that he knows from his time in the pros.
Well, and it has to be because there aren't 9 or 10 former Utes that I think are qualified to coach at the level that Alex wants them to. And Alex's his senior year at Utah, junior and senior year, actually may have been all 4 of the years now that I think about it. Donnie Daniels and Juddy were the assistants, Judkins, and then there were a couple of support people. But you're right. Can you just even imagine that? Here we are back in the 90s. There were maybe two lead assistants and then a few other support groups. And now it's just you've got almost a coach per player. So by that standard and by that rationale, you're right, Spence. He's not going to fill up an entire staff filled with former Utes. But there's certainly a couple that people could look at. I mean, Mike Doliak's he's a high school coach, but he's coaching. So there are plenty of former Utes that have chosen that career. And we'll see where that goes and what fits well for Alex.
Porter, will you please make a note that Dave is on the record saying he believes that there aren't 8 or 9 former Utes that are smart enough to coach college basketball?
I did not use the word
thank you.
smart.
Okay, thank you. No, I just wanted, he's my producer. We just need to make notes. It's all good.
Okay.
All right, Dave, before I set you loose, make the final 12 games for the Utah Jazz interesting.
There's a very real possibility that they don't even win another game. So trying to make it, did I read correct? Is John not playing tonight? I don't think he is, or he was on the out list yesterday.
I don't know, Dave.
So
I stopped checking the availability of these players. I don't give a rip.
Okay, I still track who's playing and who's not. So, but there's 2 games you can look at that might win. One is at Charlotte, but again, that's on the road, so I'm not so sure they're going to win that one. And then the home game against Portland, maybe. But other than that, think about that. There's a very real possibility that they may not win another game. And you know what? A lot of people think that that's good. That's the way it should be. It keeps you right in that position to perhaps get Cooper Flag, to capture the flag.
Ooh, Dave, in your bag today. All right, buddy, I'll set you loose. I know you got to get ready for the event, so enjoy it, and thanks for the time.
Okay, thanks so much. Talk to you later.
All right, there you go. We will catch a quick break. We'll do a quick reset, then we'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program. Tony Jones will stop by for all of the storylines regarding the local college scene and a little NBA as well. So don't go anywhere. Catch a quick break. We'll be back on the other side right here on ESPN 700.
Hey guys, Russell here. Yes, the typical boring, yes, Russell, the robot Russell, the one you guys love to know. Real exciting. I'm real exciting. But anyways, everybody has to have an alter ego, right? And I've been thinking about what my alter ego would be, and I think I have an alter ego. His name's Mr. Unlimited. You gotta be unlimited. You gotta have a thought process of being unlimited. So when people ask you, what you're thinking about or what you want to do in life or where you want to go, you got to be unlimited. Tell them, I'm unlimited. You know what I mean? So when they ask you certain questions like,
who brings you motivation, Russell?
Mr. Unlimited.
Who's your role model, Russell?
Unlimited.
Who's your go-to person for advice, Russell?
They think Pete Carroll, they think this person, think that person. Love you, Pete, but it's Mr. Unlimited. Tell them.
If you're watching our YouTube channel, you are seeing me shake my head in disgust because Porter knows better. This is a Mr. Unlimited free zone. The only thing more corny than the sound is the video that accompanies the sound. By the way, what's up with Ciara? Like,
you gotta tell your boy, like, don't encourage that. Don't participate in that.
I'm not one to judge another person's relationship. Certainly, I'm not. Let me just be clear.
No.
But Ciara is like a catch, man. Like, and she lands on Russell Wilson, who's the corniest dude in the world. Why are we playing this sound? Porter is acting a fool here. He knows I can't stand it. Well, the Giants have signed Russell Wilson to a one-year deal worth up to $21 million, including $10.5 million guaranteed. This is for him to be their starter.
The money would say so.
Yeah, like they've got a pick that could land them Cam Ward. Well, actually, Tennessee apparently is going to go with Cam Ward, according to reports. They could grab Shedeur, though. So this has to indicate that Russell Wilson is the starting quarterback for the Giants next year.
And here's the only reason I don't hate that, and it's because their other options were, number one, your guy that you draft this year, and I don't like drafting a quarterback and throwing him into the fire. I think that at the NFL level, it's just very rarely a good idea. There are certain quarterbacks who have been able to make something out of it. Usually those quarterbacks are on really, really good rosters as rookies. Ben Roethlisberger comes to mind. But for the most part, there is just not very many benefits to throwing a rookie quarterback out there. So you get Russell, you got a short-term deal, you throw him out there as your starter for year one. And if you do go and draft a Shedeur, if you do go and draft, maybe trade up for a Cam Ward, if you are able to get the quarterback of your future in the room, you're finally in a position, if you're the New York Giants, to allow him to ease in instead of, throw him to the Wolves like you did with Daniel Jones and a bunch of guys without a good roster. They were lucky with Eli Manning for quite some time. So that's the reason I like it. What I don't like is that now I wonder where the Pittsburgh Steelers go in this offseason, who they end up with there.
Oh, you know where they're going. They're going to the darkness retreat, baby.
Ugh.
They're going to go do a little ayahuasca. They're going to go have some sort of, realization, some esoteric mind-opening awakening.
Listen.
They're going to the darkness retreat, and they're signing your boy, Aaron Rodgers.
What is Mike Tomlin's streak of winning seasons? It's ridiculous. Whatever it is, it ends this year if they do that. I like Mike Tomlin. I like the Steelers. I got buddies in that locker room. Jalen Warren's in that locker room cheering for them. If they sign Aaron Rodgers and they go with him as their starter for the first time in however many decades, they will have a losing season this year.
The New York Giants have the number 3 pick in the draft. They certainly could grab Shedeur if they wanted to, because it looks like Tennessee is now on the Cam Ward train. And if the Browns don't take Travis Hunter, they're dumb, which leaves Shedeur there at 3. And the Giants also signed Jameis, right? Like 2 weeks ago, they signed Jameis Winston. So this is Russell Wilson 1, Jameis Winston 2.
Yeah, when you have Jameis in your locker room and you have the 3rd pick, you're not going to go sign Russell Wilson unless you have plans on him being either your starter or at least your starter until week 12, 13, 14, and you bring in your rookie because you're not going to make the postseason. That looks to be the Giants' plan here in 2025.
My goodness. So there you go. Little breaking news, random breaking news on the NFL offseason side. The New York Giants are unlimited. I can't do that. It ruins my day. Russell Wilson going to be your starter in New York. Jameis Winston the backup. NFL draft like 1 month from today. So we'll do a little more NFL draft as we kind of approach the thing. But we'll catch a quick break. 5 o'clock hour of the program. We'll do all the local college basketball storylines. There are a lot of them. New general manager on his way to the University of Utah potentially. We'll tell you who that is. We'll get you ready for a busy night in pro basketball. Then we'll say goodnight at 6 o'clock on this lovely Tuesday afternoon. It's like 67 and sunny. So don't go anywhere. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, let's get it. Drive at 5 time, Tuesday afternoon style. 5 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. 67 degrees and sunny. How do you like that, man? Spring has sprung. It is a beautiful day outside, and as it is every day, it's good to have you along for the ride. The 5 o'clock hour of the program tonight is brought to you by our good friends. A good day for this, too, at IFA Country Stores. With the sun shining now, it's time for you to start thinking about your lawn care. And IFA Country Stores has everything you need to care for your lawn, no matter the size, no matter the shape. Their 4+ lawn care program can promote a healthy green lawn for you this summer. They're the same products used at many local sports fields, golf courses, and city parks. You can consult IFA's team of experts for your yard this season. Visit them online at ifa.coop or stop by one of the 18 Utah stores today. IFA Country Stores, helping to grow the things that you love. Breaking news dropped just about 10 minutes ago, according to Adam Schefter and ESPN. Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson, is on his way to the Big Apple. Signed a one-year, $21 million deal with the New York Giants. Make no mistake, he's starting for them. Russell Wilson is your starting quarterback in New York next year. Last week, the Giants signed Jameis Winston, and now they've got Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston under center. Ironically enough, the Giants have the number 3 pick in the NFL draft, and as recently as this morning, I think it was Mike Tannenbaum on Get Up, or one of those dopey shows that ESPN has now, said that the Giants were high speed ahead to drafting Shedeur Sanders at number 3. Now, new intel today indicates the Tennessee Titans have landed on Cam Ward as their preference for the number 1 overall pick. The NFL draft is literally 1 month away from like right now. So we're high speed ahead of the NFL draft, and this news today kind of changes things. Tennessee at 1, Cam Ward appears to be the pick. And then at 2 is the Cleveland Browns. Will they look at Shedeur Sanders? Breaking news: Cleveland needs a quarterback badly, one that does not mistreat women, preferably. Travis Hunter thought to be the best player in the draft, non-quarterback option at number 2. But what does that mean for the Giants at 3? Maybe if the Browns go Travis Hunter at 2, Shedeur Sanders at 2, maybe the Giants are able to luck into Travis Hunter at 3. So we'll have to see. So some big breaking news in the world of professional football just about 10 or 15 minutes ago. On the local scene, Pete Thamel, who covers college athletics for ESPN and does a really, really good job, is reporting that the University of Utah is targeting veteran NBA front office executive Wes Wilcox to be the school's men's basketball general manager, according to sources. So, should this go down, Wes Wilcox would be the highest-ranking sitting NBA front office member to take a college front office job. Most recently, Wes has been with the Sacramento Kings as an assistant general manager. The Sacramento Kings are an absolute mess. They have horrible ownership. They've made some really dumb moves. And I wouldn't be surprised if Wes was looking to get his resume into certain places. Nothing official just yet. Let's make that very clear. As the official home of the University of Utah, the school has not announced this. The athletic department has not announced this yet. This is a report from Pete Thamel that Wes Wilcox is being considered as the general manager option for the Utah Utes. So in the past, Wes has actually been an NBA general manager. He was the general manager of the Hawks from 2015 to 2017. He was the assistant general manager for Atlanta for 3 years prior to that. And before that, he was the director of player personnel for the Cleveland Cavaliers and worked as the general manager for the Cleveland G League team. Why do I bring that up? Well, the G League team in Cleveland is the Canton Charge. And Wes hired Alex Jensen to coach the Canton Charge, a stop where Alex won the G League Coach of the Year and also won a G League championship. So Wes has been in the NBA since 2003 and has worked like every job in an NBA front office. So ultimately, this is the new normal in college basketball. And this would be a really exciting thing. We had Tim McMahon on the show a little bit earlier. He knows Wes. Wes is 39 years old. He's thought to be a very young, energetic, charismatic, front-facing executive. And with the way this thing is going in college athletics, you are going to need a leader on the – I can't believe I'm saying this, but you're going to need a leader on the front office side that understands contract mechanisms, understands collective bargaining, understands budgeting, understands how to allocate funds to players, coaches, and staffers. And Wes has done this at the highest of levels in the NBA. And now it looks like the University of Utah's high-speed ed potentially hiring him to lead their new endeavor into the new world of college athletics. So we still await word for the rest of the staff to fill out around Alex Jensen. Last week, we found out that Rafael Chilius was going to be the first hire. We'll bring in Tony Jones coming up in a bit, who knows Coach Chill. And, 2 hires potentially now in the works, one official, one conversations ongoing, and neither of the two former Utes. And I bring that up because I know a lot of people around here are hoping that some of these Utes could potentially come back home to coach next to Alex Jensen. And I'm on record saying I don't really think that that's necessary. Alex has the tone and tenor of the kind of local feel when it comes to what you need to know as a local. Alex played his high school basketball at Viewmont. He played his college basketball at Utah. I'll say it again. I've said it 25,000 times by now. If Alex Jensen is going to look at Andre Miller as an option, I think that's pretty viable. That's something I would definitely do. If Andre wants to come, I think that's a hire you have to make. But only time will tell. So Rafael Chilius in the fold as Alex's first assistant coach. Wes Wilcox potentially on the way to become the general manager. And this is an indicator, whether it's boosters, whether it's Taylor Randall, whether it's Mark Harlan, somebody finally freaking woke up and said, no more. We have to figure something out with our basketball program. For a long, long time, football has received the bulk of the attention, and you understand why, and it should. Football is the revenue generator. It is the biggest, dynamic of an athletic department that you need to have dialed in. I'm not saying don't focus on football at all. Continue to do that. But you do not have to focus on one or the other. And it feels like for a long, long time, this issue with the men's basketball program has simply been glossed over. Can we not have hanging banners in the upper deck of the Huntsman Center anymore? Like, it's embarrassing. When you look at the Sweet 16, Alabama is in the Sweet 16. Florida is in the Sweet 16. Even a school like Texas Tech, Sweet 16. I mean, these are schools with good football programs. Ole Miss, Tennessee, Auburn, Michigan. I could keep going. There are plenty of schools in the country that hone in on both football and basketball, and Utah's ignored the issues with the basketball program for too long. So, indicator that money is being spent. You don't get a guy like Wes Wilcox unless you're writing a check. You don't get a guy like Alex Jensen unless you're writing a check. So, exciting stuff there. All right, the Salt Lake Bees have a new hive. Join us for opening week, April the 8th through the 13th, as we kick off our inaugural season at the ballpark at America First Square in South Jordan. Every game will feature exciting giveaways, so don't miss out. Experience the thrill of America's favorite pastime and join us this season for professional baseball, family-friendly entertainment, and unforgettable memories. Giveaways include pennants, T-shirts, beanies, and more. Every night of the first homestand, single-game tickets are now on sale. Visit slbees.com for more information. This season, the Bees will feature fireworks and drone nights throughout the season, brunch every Sunday home game, Bark in the Park for 9 games. Wow, Bark in the Park. You can bring your dog to the game. I don't know what you were thinking, Porter. It's Bark in the Park. I don't know why you're rolling your eyes. You can just
That's
bring
what
your
I was
dog.
thinking.
All
Duke's
right.
got to be there.
You can bring your dog to the game. So me and Duke are going to go check out the Bees. How about a Superman night and a cowboy-themed weekend? I don't know how to pronounce the other one, so we're going to put that aside. The ballpark at America First Square is designed for year-long use. Coming soon, a brand-new Bees team store will be open all year. The site will also have a megaplex theater that includes movies, bowling, arcade, and dining, restaurants, and a concert stage. The Salt Lake Bees are dedicated to providing a premium experience with wallet-friendly ticket pricing. The privately financed stadium has a capacity of 8,000 fans and offers open lawn, premium club, and field-level seating options. There's going to be a ticket and a seat for every type of fan. The new amenities at the ballpark at America First Square, at or near the compared to other minor league baseball facilities, are on par with any Major League Baseball facility. Wow, look at that. Fan amenities, a locally inspired concessions, and a grab-and-go market using smart technology, alcohol-free family zones, spectacular views of the Wasatch Mountains, improved transportation access to the ballpark, more parking, lower costs for parking, new track stops at center field for America First Square, increased walkability, curated game day experience for fans at America First Square, comfortable seats, an expansive video board, premium seating options, fan seated behind home plate in the new field suites will be closer to the batter than the pitcher. Visit slbees.com to get your tickets and come see the Bees as the weather is now warm. Wrapping up a Tuesday show, a little Death Cab. Not coming to our market this summer for the first time in a few years, which is too bad. Big news of the day today is the New York Giants and Russell Wilson have reached an agreement on a one-year deal worth up to $21 million, $10.5 million guaranteed. That's a starter's contract in New York for 1 year. Jameis Winston, the backup. What does that mean for the Giants at 3? In the NFL draft coming up, we'll have to see. Troy Taylor lost his job today, former Utah offensive coordinator, as Andrew Luck took over and cleaned house. Troy Taylor has been fired. Jazz are in action tonight, taking on Memphis. The Madness of March will resume coming up on Thursday. Juju Watkins torn ACL last night. Watching that game, unfortunate. Utah Hockey Club back in action on Thursday. Are you watching White Lotus?
I have not yet.
It's quite a ride.
HBO, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a ride. Any television programs catching your attention right now? I know you're not a huge TV series guy.
There's nothing really. March Madness.
Righteous Gemstones?
I will watch that. But
you got to get on it.
As I usually do, it just started the season, right? So there's like one episode out.
I think the third one dropped on Sunday.
Okay, so there's 3 episodes. I struggle when I start watching a series and then it's in the middle of a season. So probably we'll just wait until it's done and then I'll kind of watch it in a weekend or so. But that's usually how I consume television.
Walton Goggins, my man's having a moment. That dude is hilarious.
He's really funny.
Uncle Baby Billy.
Who mentioned him on Justified? I think Chris might have.
Tom Roddy did, yeah.
That's a show that I don't know that that's necessarily down your alley, but he was really good in it. That's more of a old cop drama type deal, and he was he was phenomenal in that one. I'll have to see him in this season because he's one of my favorite characters in that show.
A quick follow-up. What does it mean that show is not down my alley?
I don't know. It's just it's about like kind of like organized, maybe disorganized crime in like Harlan County, coal mining country. Maybe you might enjoy it.
Sorry, my distant cousin isn't Jesse James or whatever the hell it is.
No, you might enjoy it.
Who's your relative? Was it? No, it's Billy Butch Cassidy. Billy,
there you go.
Billy
Robert Leroy Parker.
That's right.
Butch Cassidy.
I don't have to have a distant relative that was a criminal to enjoy unorganized crime in a coal mining town. I can enjoy that.
This is fair.
Judging me.
You're just you're a Succession guy.
Yeah, Succession's awesome.
What's Ted Lasso? You seem to like corporate
okay.
corporate shows.
You know what? I don't want to hear anything else. That is enough. Corporate shows?
Not saying they can't be good. I love myself The Office. I like Succession.
Succession was amazing. I miss it.
I'm just saying.
All right, fine. You're passively aggressively insulting me to finish off the show.
Well, watch Justified and see how you like it.
No, I don't want to. It's not down my alley.
Okay.
All right, Jazz welcoming the Grizzlies tonight, but if you want to listen to some basketball where teams actually are trying to win, we have the Warriors and the Heat on our radio station. Jimmy Butler back in South Beach, so stay tuned for that. Before we get out of here, Porter, what comes our way on a 72-degree Wednesday edition of the show?
Wow. Midway through the work week, of course, halfway to the weekend, Pablo Mastroeni stops by, talking some Real Salt Lake. We'll talk to Zach Harper on some hoops, Neil Smith on some hockey, so covering all of our bases there, and then finishing off the Wednesday in studio with our guy Chris Comrani. So a good Wednesday show to get you halfway through.
Very nice. So stay tuned for that. We'll say goodnight, and a special thank you to Tony Jones, Tom Haberstroh, Tim McMahon, and Dave Fox for any of the sound you may have missed from the show. The website is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us, on the go. Burp it up and Uncrustable. No big deal. The ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store, the Google Play Store. Then finally, for what we do in our space, every afternoon, check out our podcast page. It is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's a great way to listen to what we do because you get to listen to whatever part of the show you want to on your time. While you're at your preferred podcast catcher, give us a rating. If you say nice things, give us all the stars. Definitely helps us out. We would appreciate it. He's Porter. I'm Spence. Saying goodnight. Enjoy a little Heat Warriors coming up on the other side. We'll catch you on a Wednesday drive. As always, you know where to find it. It's right here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We are proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network.